going to call the September 11th school committee meeting to order. It is, 7:01? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that part's done. Any public comments? What? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. As you can see, the meeting is being recorded for cable television. So now, do we have any public comments?
I was just waiting for the recording. No.
Thanks, Barney. You're so helpful. All right, we'll have more opportunity at the end of the meeting. So, the minutes from the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen on July 23rd. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. And does anyone want to?
I will move to approve them as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, I did it.
Good job.
All right, so let's do it again. So now we have meetings, the minutes from, what is it, July 29th. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So do we have,
I wrote them, so somebody else.
okay, so would someone like to make a motion that we accept them?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting's minutes from July 20th.
She wasn't there, she can't do it.
You can't do it.
I can't do it because I wasn't
You
there.
can
No,
do
it's
it.
Andy's.
I moved to please accept the minutes from the meeting of July 29th.
A second?
Do I say have to
A
say?
second.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are just doing so good. Okay. So the first item on our agenda is, am I all right? You're looking at me like.
No, I'm just
Okay.
looking at you with admiration.
As you know, Melinda Gambino spent a year with us on the school committee, and she moved to Concord, and we definitely miss her. She brought so much to this committee and so much to the town of Carlisle with all the projects that she and her husband Peter worked on. And so we want to publicly thank Melinda for her service and wish her all the best in Concord. Does anyone want to add anything to that? You don't have to, but if you'd like to, please
Sure.
do.
I worked pretty closely with Melinda, and she and I had a lot of discussions in the winter and the spring because we knew that two experienced members were coming off, in Josh and Mary, excuse me. And I felt that I should join the region, which meant that the chairmanship was vacant, and she stepped up to that. And so we did a lot of work together to sort of prepare that, and I thought even though she was only chairman for a very short period of time, she stepped into it pretty comfortably.
I agree, yeah.
So I was sorry, definitely, to see that. I'm happy that they moved to a nice house in Concord.
Yeah,
I like them very much.
but the town of Carlisle misses them.
The town of Carlisle misses them,
Yeah.
both of them. So we wish them well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
I would agree with all the sentiments. We miss her, but we're happy to welcome.
Yes,
Shannon.
we're happy to
Yes, we are
welcome
happy to
Shannon.
welcome Shannon. So, okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have, are other folks from Amoresco coming?
I thought they were planning on joining us. I'm
Yeah.
surprised they're not here yet.
So, okay, so,
To Rob.
Yeah, we can move. Rob's got things to do, so we can move Rob ahead.
so Rob, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
So if I could just say
Yes,
a few words
please
before
do.
we, so before Rob shares the facility update, I wanted to take a moment just to apologize to the Board of Health and to the Recreation Department and to the community for not sharing some of the concern that we had initially. If you recall, in June, we had the elevator issue, and we realized that there was some leakage of hydraulic fluids. And at that time, we decided we should have the water tested. That's something we should do because we lost the fluid. And at that time, we probably should have notified the Board of Health as to what we were doing. It wasn't until the end of July when we got the test results back that we then had the information that raised that level of concern, that we did communicate that all ultimately. So I've been in touch with the Board of Health. I've been in touch with recreation. We've made those connections to ensure that something like this won't happen again. And at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Rob, and I would start with all the positive things that have taken place, because it's really an update on the facility, and then we'll talk about, briefly about what's happening in the moments.
All right. Thanks.
Before we had, before we got into the water issue over the summer, we were able to get some nice things done. 4 of the Robbins classrooms got recarpeted over the summer. 3 on the first floor down the hall here and 1 upstairs. 2 of the grant classrooms got new ceiling grids installed. So we went from the old industrial 4-foot-long drop ceiling that was sagging over time, and they put in a nice 2x2 squares, like a nicer, cleaner look ceiling grid in there. In the gymnasium, we had destratification fans installed, and that was a Green Communities funded project. So basically, if you remember, like the Corey gym over the years gets very stuffy.
Yeah.
It gets very humid down there. It gets very, it's not much. It's hard for the air to flow. So these 4 fans will direct the air from the ceiling down to the floor and cause almost like a vortex. Kind of like a nice flow of air. It would definitely help out even in the wintertime too for keeping the space warmer. Most of the heat will go to the top otherwise. And we built a nice recess shed this summer outside. So instead of the during recess having a cart that goes back and forth from the central receiving area out to the outside, the class of 2019 donated money for the shed, and I brought retired Danny Flannery in, and
good.
I built it over like a day and a half together, and towards the end of the summer we had it online for the start of the semester. So now on the elevator. Okay, so as you know, the elevator failed in beginning of June, I believe. And like Jim was saying, we got the test results back. We had the water sampled, being proactive on that, but we didn't get the results back until the end of July, unfortunately. But by like the 3rd week in June, they had determined that the loss was the hydraulic fluid. Then went down below the pit. So we went through the process of securing funding for a new elevator by the end of June. And in July, the elevator company came in and ripped out all the old mechanical equipment inside the pit and inside the mechanical room that led to the pit. So the oil reservoir, the piston, all the controls on the wall, all the relays, everything that came with it back in 1987. So that's all gutted out now. They've since come in and came back a few weeks later and did another, did testing underneath the pit, where they removed soil, they removed water that had oil in it. Altogether, we had 7 55-gallon drums of material removed from the site from below the pit. They came back out, reassessed it, took some more sampling of the groundwater underneath the pit. So leading into the water issue, when the results came back at the end of July, we were told we were put on a bottled water order at the time. So that lasted for a few weeks until they could figure out, they had to design what they call a POET system, which is a point of entry treatment system for the compounds they found in the test results that we got back on the 31st. But I'll read you the memo that went out tonight from Omni Group. The Omni Environmental Group is our insurance company's liaison kind of thing. They're the licensed site professional that deal with environmental spills of this kind. So they've been handling the the water supply that we've been drinking up to this point. We've been having tankers come in, and they've been handling the testing of every time a tanker comes in with water, we have to get a sample, we have to get it tested for bacteria. So that goes out, they've been arranging all that. Let me just, I'll just give you kind of like a little brief rundown of their memo from tonight.
Just summarize.
Yeah, a little summarize.
Hit the high notes.
So on August 22nd, Omni Group presented a POET system. So it's a point of entry treatment system designed to the advanced DEP. They responded back on the 4th of September about the being able to treat the fuel oil contamination with a granular activated carbon system. Upon further review from the DEP, they asked us to test for radon, the potential to generate, radon, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it, GAC, radionuclide impacted waste. So it showed small concentrations that were above the laboratory method detection limits. And so now they've come back and they said, so the POET system that was originally designed for the oil, it has to be modified. So now we have to do a separate type of filter system for the radon. So with all the, with Omni being the LSP and like Small Water Group being a water operator, with DP, there's been a lot of communication going around like this. So tomorrow, Jim and I are meeting with Omni folks. The DP is coming out to actually be on the site for the first time. And Small Water Systems and our plumber that we have. So the plumber has actually already started putting like the fittings on the equipment that we got, but we can't set it up yet until they design a system that encompasses both the radon and the petroleum products that they found in July. So that leads me to the best news ever that I got on the way over here tonight. So the tanker that we've been using, the delivery service that has been provided for us from Omni, uses two wells. They actually grab their water from a public drinking water supply. So they use West Bridge water and they use Braintree. Up until this point, they've been using the Braintree well, and that just came back positive for PFASs. So there was a red flag put up for the Braintree well. So DP was communicating this afternoon with myself and with Omni. They wanted us to originally have them bring in the water from a different source, flush out what they brought in earlier today. But when they went to the secondary well in West Bridgewater, there was a big sign up that said E. coli. So we did one of these type of things. We don't want we don't want the water from there. So unfortunately for tomorrow, we have to go on a bottled water. They are looking for an additional supplier for water, hoping to have a delivery made by 11 o'clock tomorrow, so we can be up and running for drinking water. But there can be Omni folks that are going to be scrambling. They're going to be bringing us enough bottled water and enough secondary supply of water in the morning so we can get up and running for school tomorrow. And I've had some conversations. I just talked with Sue Robashaw too before she called me up too about what she can and can't do tomorrow and things like that. So we're not gonna have any food tomorrow that would involve like water preparation to make the food. So we're not gonna be boiling water to make pasta or anything like that. But hopefully that gets cleared up by 11 when they can have another tanker provider come in.
Well, how does it even work when you have bottled water? I mean, you don't use the water fountains.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to use the water.
So those are all like taped over?
Yeah, we'll have to put signage on them.
And so what does it mean? You have bottles of water available for kids and cups? And what about the couple weeks where we were, well, it's been more than that, where we were getting water from from Braintree?
We were getting it from Braintree, it just.
Was it okay then?
It was okay then, it just came up that it was flagged for the.
The next delivery.
So the last delivery got flagged?
Yes. So the last delivery right now is sitting in our holding tank in the water room. They would like us to flush that out. We
With-
can use it to flush toilets.
Yeah, we want it for
We can use it for
facility,
toilets.
we need
We can use it
it.
for gray water.
So you can use it for the toilet,
Yeah,
It's a great
as long
one,
as you
yeah.
don't have cats that are drinking.
yeah.
What are PFAs?
I have to look it up. There's a lot of new acronyms.
Fluoro,
I'll
the
have
F
to
is
throw
fluoro, I
that
would say.
lately, but
I
I
can
can
tell you.
see if we can find it for you.
Okay. So Rob, is the main thing is, do you believe the contamination, initial contamination, was slow leakage over time or a result of their removing the old elevator? Like, did they sever
I
something?
think it was, my assumption is it was the result of the actual piston failing.
So it was something over time that it leaked, the
Yeah.
failing piston leaked hydraulic fluid in it.
Yeah,
found its way.
the bottom of the piston, it was in a steel caisson that sat into the bedrock.
Yeah.
So it went down about 23 feet below the pit. The bottom edge of that caisson was rotted out. So it's steel, it's in the earth, electrolysis over time. It just gave way. So when the piston gave way, the oil went down.
Right. And the,
Under normal circumstances, how often is the water tested?
It's tested once a month.
Okay.
By the water
And,
operator.
but tested with like a battery, a comprehensive battery,
well,
looking
the
for things
PF
like radon and that
The
kind of stuff?
PFAC thing is a new thing,
Yeah.
so that's a new testing.
perfluoroalkyl substances.
Does it get removed by like regular filtration? That would be,
Well, right now, the
And the
POET
walls.
system that they designed originally for just the petroleum product is 2 300-gallon, like almost like torpedo tube type filters filled with carbon. The carbon's activated. There's actually a pre-filter that takes out, particulates in the water, so it doesn't go into the carbon. And then they're going to be putting in a UV system that helps with bacteria too. So the water goes through the UV system and it decreases, eliminates bacteria also on top of the existing chlorination that we already have too.
So we've got, I almost hesitate to even think about this because we're a well-water town, right?
Yeah.
And to think about not being a well-water town, to me, is daunting, to say the least. But we've got to be the biggest single drinking water system in town, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's Tims and ticks, there's all these, things that they're just learning to test for. Is all the whole battery stuff is now being tested? Really?
Yeah, they've been testing for everything under the sun.
Okay, so we're pretty.
Which is good, I mean.
No, it's good,
And
that's
the
good.
system and they're actually bringing in the original engineer that
Yeah.
designed the water system back in the 80s for that room. So he's coming in tomorrow also to meet with us too. So, yeah, they're trying to nip this in the bud before it just seems like it's,
Right.
flowing like this, so.
So there's no immediate health concern for the students or for the school. So it's really, it seems like what you're saying is that it's a question of, is there going to be an ongoing expense for getting bottled water? Is there going to be a source that's identified to replace these contaminated sources? And getting some sort of schedule for when we can expect clean water to be delivered and we can stop going off
Well,
bottles?
we're hoping that the bottled water will only last until 11 o'clock tomorrow, until they can find another. There are plenty of other vendors out there,
Okay.
so they have to make
So
sure.
do you pull up a truck and you just hook it into the?
Yeah, we have we've been using a 6,000-gallon tanker outside. It's connected with a food grade hose, so it's not, you can't contaminate the hose, the hose lining. And it has to be manually filled, so they left us with a pump off that tanker, so we have to actually top off the holding tanks during the day after so much use. We have to, it's pretty much replacing the well pump that we had.
Right.
So, but we have to turn it on and off manually. So it's been between myself and Rich, quite a little fun process.
When do you think the well will be back on?
We're hoping, we really can't answer that until we figure out what they're gonna do tomorrow for the whole system. The plumbers have been out several times, so they're chomping at the bit to get everything tied in and get up and running. They just have to make sure that they're hitting all the things that they want to test for. so the radon, and, you know, I'm sure with the, that's for the PFAS too, because that's a new thing, so.
And the same company will be covering both filtration systems?
So,
Or you have to?
I think
go
that,
for
I think that's been
filtration?
like one of the biggest debates. So Omni Environmental Group is our licensed site professional. So they got the ball rolling with the permit process on the initial carbon system. I think they started a second permit on their own, but we kind of halted them at that, and the DP didn't want two permits for the same system. You know, so that's why we're doing this meeting tomorrow, because they want to have it, so let's go back to the drawing board if it needs to have this type of filter before the carbon filter for the radon. Then let's have a, you know, schematic drawn up so we can go back to the town hall, so the plumbing inspector, and say, this is what we're gonna be doing.
Part of that conversation is also who's gonna pay for it, right? 'Cause
Exactly.
Omni is covering, Omni is accepted responsibility for
The water
for the
bubbles.
poet, the initial poet system. But then when it came to the system that is gonna address the radon, see, if there is radon in the water and it builds up inside the new poet system, then that can become radioactive. So it becomes radioactive waste. So we have to address radon, which was not at concerning levels, but may be there at some level, so we have to address that. But they're saying that those two are not connected. Somehow that, and I'm saying, well, we have to put the poet system in because of the spill. So the fact that we need the radon system also, it is connected. So we still have to have that conversation tomorrow. And the gentleman from Omni was gonna go do a little more research after our last meeting to come back with some more information. So, but they're trying to separate the two as one is this system, one is the system we're responsible for, which might lead to the two permits back at the DEP.
Yeah. But the, you know, I've been communicating with the DP like 5 or 6 times a day, and with Omni Group. So this is a lot of collaboration. We're trying to get this system designed and installed properly, so we don't have to worry about,
Right.
you know, moving forward.
You don't want to patch it, you want to get it right.
Yeah, we want to get it right.
And right now, we want to make sure that we have sources of water that people can drink and we can operate our facilities on so that we can have school tomorrow.
Have you been, so you're using well water for toilets? No.
No, we're using the tank of water for the toilet.
So,
The well has been shut off for
Yeah.
a few months now.
Rob, thanks for all your
Thank you, Rob.
tenaciousness on this. It's a lot.
Okay, well,
Are you gonna see if we can top off the tanks?
yes.
That's what Rich was gonna, he
Yeah.
went out to.
he's going off the pump right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Rich,
Thanks,
for all the
Rob.
stuff over the summer, too. It's a great list. So, I had asked Amoresco to be here at 7:30. You guys, is everybody here? So if you'd like, you can take the floor.
Is there any way I can hook up the projector?
Yeah, you can, I can, whichever you.
What is her issue?
Yeah, she's from the meeting school, too, so why don't,
What's her issue?
she's not on the agenda. Thank you. She's just here, she's the rep from Selectmen to the school.
Oh, for Amoresco, for this issue.
General. Yeah, she's just our liaison, or their liaison to us.
I know, I think. This is what the PDF does.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, I've got one. Did you read, what? She's already read it.
Give one to Chris.
Okay, I've got mine on mine.
We got an extra.
Is there enough?
Yeah, we're good, thank you.
If there were members of the community here, I'd tell them what Amoresco is, but there's no one right now. So everybody, shh, no. I did tell them to ask them to be at 7:30, that's by the way.
That's good.
You're on.
Okay. Well, hello again, everyone. So just wanted to provide an update in regards to the solar canopies for the school. And I mean, at this point in time, I can't remember the last time we talked, but we've completed, wetlands and surveying, and now we're going to site plan next week, I believe. For site plan review, everything has been submitted for that. So we just want to provide an update on the striping plan and the layout and where we're at on that.
Before you go on, could you just tell us your name?
Davina Thacker.
Thank you.
And I'm Shantini. So I'm a project development manager at Shantini is that. So this layout is a little bit different than what the striping plan is currently. Shantini, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what we did, but we gained 3 spaces.
Yeah, mainly because of the islands. So this is as per, at least part of it, the newer ones are as per the current zoning requirements for Carlisle. So the space that's currently there at the parking lot is actually smaller. Sorry, it's actually smaller than it should be. So it should be 9 by 20, I think, and it's a little bit less than 9 and 18, I think. So the middle ones, which are the new striping, are as per the current standards, but the ones that are existing, these ones, basically are the same. And since these are getting wider, this will get pushed back a bit.
And this is just the striping plan, our system is overlaid with the striping plan, so you can see in relation to the new plan, where our system is going to go. And this is just a picture showing,
The long plan
Yeah.
at the bus.
the bus area where the kids are, how it would look, and the clearance on the system in regards to the bus.
Why is it angled?
It's tilted towards the south.
What's that?
It's tilted to the south.
Because to get better angle of sun?
Yeah.
And then this is just an example of what's on the lower area, parking area.
Buses.
So we worked with Rob, facilities manager, as well as Stuart Shea to see the clearance of the bus and how that affects the foundation. I think there were no real concerns, especially since the islands will be removed. I guess to give everybody a little an idea, we did take a video to show the clearance of the cones. So the cones represent where the foundation would be, and how the bus will clear that.
That's good.
So
So that's that particular ones with the bus on the side of it.
They can go back.
this is the same thing with the bus. That bus is closer to the island, but that house is going to be removed. And like you can
Actually,
see,
that one was the easiest one.
Yeah, the first one.
That's where the poles will be, or?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cones represent
the cones represent where the poles will be, like the foundations.
Right, but they wouldn't hit those anyway, that's the curb, right? I mean, what is that really showing?
It's actually 3 feet away from the curb,
Oh, okay.
so.
So you're just saying they don't get that close?
Yeah.
And
So-
the doors don't open right in front of a pole or something?
Yeah, so there were some concerns on where the placement of the foundations would be, so we just wanted to make sure we did a bus turn radius, and we did this assessment to make sure that, we'd be able to clear it.
Yep.
Thanks for taking that extra step. That was helpful.
And in terms of schedule, we were able to coordinate with the paving contractor who's redoing the parking lot to come up with this preliminary schedule. Like I said, we're going for a site plan next week. Hope to get approval and then apply to SMART And then we anticipate coming in April vacation, to start some of the work, like the conduits and stuff. And then, I guess this is like a little back and forth between the paving, company and ourselves. We'll be working with them closely, but paving is coming in right after, a couple days after school ends. They're gonna do what they need to do, and then we'll come in and remobilize the site and work through that.
Complete the installation.
Yeah, and we'll complete the installation, and then we should be done by the end of the summer.
What is the SMART program? I'm sorry.
So the SMART program is the incentive
Okay,
program that
alright.
we're looking to apply for.
All right, great.
Which thing are we gonna qualify for?
We don't know yet, they've gotta get through site plan review and a few other things. And we're currently estimating it's gonna be block 3, which is kind of where we've been all the time.
Yeah.
There's a possibility it will fall into block 4, but
We don't want that.
all depends on how quickly we can get through the planning board.
Yes. So we do need site plan approval to move forward and apply. So like Jonathan said, we anticipate block 3, worst case block 4, but we're really trying to push it along so we don't end up.
Jonathan, when is the planning board meeting?
Next Monday,
Okay,
the 16th.
Monday 16th, and then are they not meeting for another month, or are they willing to meet 2 weeks
I
later?
think they're meeting another 2 weeks after that.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end of September, I think.
So they might
So-
approve it 2 weeks later?
Well, they might actually be able to approve it in the first meeting because they've already had a preliminary discussion, so.
Yeah.
So it may be that it goes through smoothly on the 16th, or it may be that we have to wait till the 30th.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, so you could be a little ahead of this.
Right, so I think for you guys tonight, the planning board would probably like your input on,
Yep.
do you have any concerns that the planning board should enforce?
Yeah, that's good.
So,
Do you think it would be helpful for some of us to be at that meeting?
I don't know that it's necessary, but if you want to be there to say, we're happy, we have these concerns, whatever, that would be great. I will be there, so if you want to relay concerns to me, I can.
Do you want to vote? We've already voted, right?
Yeah, we voted the joint meeting.
Okay. So we don't need to vote again.
No. But I'm really glad to see the video.
Yeah.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, no problem. So we just wanted to show you as well on A High School, which was complete. This actually just completed a couple of weeks ago. It's the same system size with SunPower modules. It's pretty much gonna look like this.
It should, Carlisle should have probably the same number of panels. This one I think is 620 something kilowatt DC. Carlisle will be 670, that's mostly because of the higher watt panels. This one
Yeah,
is about 435, and Carlisle will be 470. And pretty much the same number of panels, the same equipment pad that we can see this.
So we can drive over there and see it now?
Yes.
Yes, so that's an invitation to drive over and see it. This is another picture of Munich School. And then we do have renderings of what it would look like. Hopefully.
Listen.
So that's the lawn stand in the bus area,
How big that is.
and that's on the lower end.
How do those drain
Draining road.
It's tilted towards the
Yeah,
center,
so
so
it's-
that it naturally goes to the center.
like one is tilted to the other edge, so the drains where is the center of business space.
There are spaces between panels, yeah.
There was some conversation, and I wish I had the term, there's some conversation about the connection box, the box where everything runs through.
Yeah, so that's the equipment.
Okay,
pad.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it would look like.
That's the entrance to the school, I mean, the board is behind it, pretty much.
This is all the equipment here.
And you guys will be installing the connections or the conduits for the future maybe charging stations? Is that part of?
Not part of what Amoresco is going to do. It turns out it's not financially viable, but I can talk about that when they're done.
Okay. And when did you guys complete the Natick?
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we got mechanical completion about a week ago.
It looks beautiful.
And just out of curiosity, what happens to the snow? It just melts right through this?
Well, it stays a little bit, but
And of course, this is all tested for the weight of the
Yeah.
snow.
the
You
amount
even
was
smell
left,
some?
yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty high.
That's just another view from the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was it.
Great.
Thank you.
So, taking back to the second payment, just in case we need anything. So, Christine, you wanna take a moment to?
Yes, absolutely. So just say your name and,
Yeah, Jonathan DeCock, 130 Oak Mill Road, part of the Solar Working Group at Energy Task Force. So what they presented tonight was kind of some improvements of what was presented about 2-3 weeks ago to the planning board. So at the time, the Solar Working Group and the planning board had some concerns. One was the bus area. I think Jim shared that concern. So I think that's been resolved now, right, Jim? Are we happy with that?
Yes, there, all the specifications stay as they are.
Yeah, so there's some possibility that when they go through geotechnical stuff, we're basically figuring out the rocks underneath where they're gonna have to actually drill into. Some of those poles might have to move around, but they need to stay in a straight line. So they might move a little bit, but I think it's not gonna impact the buses, okay? So I think that's dealt with. The second concern that we had was the actual location of the electrical systems on the ground. The original proposal had them sitting over next to the Carlisle Castle, and that did not seem like a good idea with, you know, they turn into a play structure with high voltage written on them.
Yeah.
So we asked them to move them. The location they moved them to is just a little bit closer than 40 feet from the street line. But we got a ruling from the building commissioner that says that those pieces of equipment don't count, it's only the actual panels that have to be 40 feet away from the street.
oh, great.
So I think that's all set. It is gonna be kind of right as you drive in, so you kind of can see what it looks like there. I don't know if you guys have any aesthetic concerns you want to relate to the planning board, because the planning board can ask them to plant bushes around it or fences or whatever, that kind of stuff. You know, from my perspective, it's not a bad thing. We have electrical equipment all over town, right, that looks like this, so.
You're referring to those boxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the boxes that you see on underground electrical lines, so.
What did the historical commission tell you? 'Cause I remember you had to go.
I didn't go to the historical commission.
I think it's just an application, I mean, they didn't seem to have any issues with it, so.
These boxes are actually outside of the historic district. It's only part of the Carlisle Castle area that's inside the historic district, so it was the wires running from the pole to get to these.
Oh, so the- okay.
So the site plan actually shows the historic district on.
So, but anyway, they've approved whatever it is.
I don't think they've approved it yet. I think they have, you guys have to do one more little thing with them, right? to
Yeah, we
finalize
just
that.
kind of need to go through the process of applying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lose a block payment because somebody dawdled on something.
Yeah, and, you know, speaking of that, I'm not entirely sure that the planning board can approve it until the historic commission has approved it, so.
So next week, on Monday, it's the
Planning
planning board,
board.
and then on Wednesday, it's the historic commission.
Okay, so they might be able to approve it provisionally or something.
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like you're on top of
Yes, we tried.
it.
Yeah,
I know you.
good.
Okay, good.
So the other one was the actual parking spaces. I think we're getting 3 more parking spaces out of this, and they're a little bit wider. So I think that's all well and good. They did mention it's gonna eat a little bit more of the island near the outflow area, but it's, how many feet, Shanti?
I'm sorry, the island?
Yeah, the island, how much of that island are we gonna consume? Are you guys gonna consume?
They're actually, this current one should be fine. It should be okay for the island.
No, I mean, the one that we're consuming from parking on the far one, you have the, mentioned at the very beginning.
Oh, that one, okay.
Yeah, about 4 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So show us which island that is, I'm sorry.
it's the one on the that one.
Meaning it's thinner, the island is thinner by 4
Okay,
feet?
okay,
Yeah,
so
the island is thinner by 4 feet.
down by the exit.
In order to accommodate all of the parking spaces having to move over a little bit because of, it's actually not Amoresco's fault, it's actually our own bylaw says if you redo the parking in the school parking lot and other public places, they have to be this size.
Okay.
So,
But that island's an important island when you have overflow parking for school
Yes.
events. We all park on that island.
you know,
Can we still get on that island?
uh,
Yeah,
Can our
but
cars
your
still
tail, your
get-
tail may be hanging off, that's all.
We got 3 or 4 extra
you might be parallel
I park
parking.
there a lot because I'm always late. That's the
Early
last
as they
one.
I think you'll be parallel parking rather than perpendicular parking there now.
Oh, Nate.
So I think that one's dealt with. The car charges, I'll get to in a second. You guys mentioned rain and water management, that's come up quite often. And so it's the same as it's always been, basically. The rain will come through, the snow will not because it's mostly up there. However, when it melts, it will come through. And so, on the positive side, the kids getting on the bus won't have to go through snow. On the negative side, for many days after that, it's quite likely to continue to melt and drop down, and so there's going to be water coming off the place that the kids are getting on and off the buses, even if it's not raining. So if you guys are okay with that, I think that's fine. I think it's not a big deal to me, but
But you like to be outside.
yeah, I don't mind the rain.
Don't leave your convertible.
That's right.
All right.
I wish Rob was here to talk about the challenge. I know that most of the snow won't hit the ground, but for the drifts that do come underneath,
Oh.
how do we remove snow? He might be able to find something
Yeah,
adapted to his
so
plow.
DPW is gonna have to be aware of this. This isn't gonna be too hard for them to plow under, right? The plows don't fit under for sure. So they'll have to deal with it. And when the water does come down on the days after a snow, the DPW might have to salt more often just because it might
Oh, it might
refreeze
freeze,
the
right.
ground. So water management has come up repeatedly because it's a very expensive thing to try to fix. And so it's better to just let it fall down, hit the pavement, and run away like it normally would.
And there won't be any islands under the panels, so that the snowplow could actually just go
Yeah, the
straight
snowplow
through.
is
So,
gonna
yeah.
go right there. In fact, he's probably gonna be a much happier snowplow because the islands there are currently getting.
Do the current parking lot has no drains, right?
It does.
It does
have
already.
drains.
So is the paving company the ones who, when they repave, are they gonna re-excavate?
Yeah, they've gotta make sure that everything's gonna flow into those.
Okay.
So that's all of that, if you guys are okay with that. The only question that I had for Amoresco on that is, in the event that we are really annoyed in the future by the water coming off and hitting the kids on sunny days, is there any way it could be retrofitted in the future?
Retrofit what?
Like put some water management up there so that it gets, channeled away in a gutter somehow? Seems difficult to me, but.
I don't know, we will need to check with some power. I guess the gutter system could be installed after.
Yeah, that's really the question.
Yeah, I don't see what.
Okay, I'll be from
Yeah, but, I mean, the experience we have had with all the systems is that, the reason the canopies are gonna be is just to hold the snow, so the apprehension of having snow falling into people is not, there's no possibility that the snow going to castle people. But of course, the snow is gonna stay there for a little more. But it always melts through the panels and through the center. But we haven't seen any really problems with that in the other systems. Usually there is, sun around or heat that kind of melts and, even the additional water on the ground, we haven't really seen.
Just Ray Han with Amoresco, just from personal experience. We did build a couple of projects with water management. And the key thing with that is there's a considerable amount of maintenance that needs to be done with them. The seagulls love to pick at them, and then they become unsightly and they start to shade. So when the gasket is peeled up by the seagulls, it creates a shading over a panel, it reduces the productivity of the panel, and then it reduces the entire string. So there's another 16 or 17 panels that are associated with that panel, and they all degrade down to the shading output. So from our perspective, and like Louise stated, it's a much less hassle of a system if you don't maintain the gasketed and the gutter water management system. Now you have to find a way to let it down to the ground. When you let it down to the ground, it has to find its way to a drain. If there's no drain there, it just becomes a much more complicated process and creates a little bit more of an arduous, I don't want to say a nightmare, it is manageable, but it becomes a lot more difficult to manage in terms of where the water is released and how to salt for it and things of that nature. So
I have a question. Is it possible, I don't know if that's usually done, to work with the paver, since we are repaving that area, to sort of grade that area underneath the canopies in that central line where the water mostly drains, so it gets pushed easier to
a drain.
To the drain. Is that something that can be pointed out to the?
He's more controlled, so the smaller canopies are not going to create as much of an issue as the large canopy where the buses are. So the smaller canopies are usually centered or about centered to a double parking space.
Okay.
And so that water funnels down to the center. The way he has to create his elevations and his inverts in order for the water to shed to a drain, that's going to be immaterial to what we do or how we set up. It's completely independent because no matter where the water falls, he still has to ultimately drain it to,
Gotcha.
So whether our panels concentrate in a particular place, which they won't, or not, he has to drain the base of that parking lot so that all the corners of the parking lot are draining to the appropriate spot. So it
it's sort
really
of
has to be
happening
independent.
It's sort of happening
Anyway.
anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
So one thing I do want to make clear, as far as, I understand from these guys, we're not going to have snow falling off on people, it's not going to avalanche down, there's going to be no icicles up there that are going to fall down and hit people, all that stuff. When it comes down, it's basically coming down as drips. So.
Thanks for that clarification, John.
So that's that, and now I want to talk about car chargers, unless you guys have more questions on this.
Nope.
All right, so car chargers. So when this process was going on, I thought sometime in the future, you guys probably want to put in car chargers in the next 30 years without ripping up the parking lot. So I had originally asked Amoresco, can we do something where they just put in a few extra conduits in their existing trenches so that it would be there for when we ever wanted to do it. Turns out there's some regulatory issues, you can't use the same trenches for stuff. So anyways, it turns out it's not financially viable because they'd have to run new trenches. So, however, I still had this goal of not having to rip up the brand new wonderful parking lot. And so I looked into it a bit more. It turns out that Eversource, our electric company, is running a program where they will trench in the stuff for free, okay? It's called EV Make Ready. And so they will basically provide the trench and the interconnection all for free. At the same time, we currently actually have a grant from Green Communities to put in one car charger. And we've been running around, the Energy Task Force has been running around and trying to find someone who wants it. And so far, we have not been able to find anyone. But it turns out that we can also put in a car charger for free. So if you guys wanted one at the school, or wanted one anytime in the next 30 years without ripping up the parking lot, we could actually get one installed at the school for free right now. I would have to go and talk to the EV Make Ready stuff and whatnot to get this going. Now, it's not all roses. There is some downsides to doing this. One is you guys would have to decide which parking spots you wanted to have the car charger at and whether you wanted to put a little sign up that said electric vehicles preferred or something like that, and there'd be complications to that. And then financially, it becomes a potential burden because someone has to pay for the electricity that's actually used to charge the cars. and there's a charge to run a credit card system on the car chargers so that it actually can communicate and do the credit card charging. And of course, Eversource needs their money too, so they charge for the meter that gets used for the car chargers. So, so all of these add up. It turns out that the town, as far as I can tell, historically pays less for their electricity than the average resident because we're on some kind of a municipal, large company kind of on-demand system. And so it works out that if we had people using it kind of on a regular basis, you could actually charge less for the electricity that's used here at the school than for a resident. So a teacher could park here and actually charge for less money than they would, pay if they were charging at home, right? So, so the question that I have for you guys is, would you like me to go try to figure out, can we put in a car charger? Can we actually put in a car charger before Amoresco comes in and starts to do their work and before we do the paving, or not? And if you do want me to do it, do you have any constraints? Because Eversource is going to put constraints on, what they want, right? So how far they have to trench and whatnot. So if any of your constraints find an overlap with their constraints, then it would be possible to find a location for this. And I think the way that I would recommend setting it up is that the school would set the parking, or the rate that would be charged for the electricity. And so you could set it to roughly the rate of, a residential charging, maybe a little less. Or you could, potentially use it as a perk for the teachers, some future, contract negotiation, something like that. Or we could go to town meeting in a future year and ask the town if they would like to subsidize the teachers doing this.
You mentioned.
Before we get into this conversation, I'm gonna release Amoresco.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't think you need to stay. We'll let you know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Jonathan, before you got into the charger, you were talking about the sort of pre-charger infrastructure. It sounded like, because that's what I always thought, is you just lay in stuff that later you deal with chargers.
Yep, and the way the EV Make Ready program works is you have to put in one car charger.
So you do need,
Yeah,
so they're
they
tied
won't-
together.
Yeah, so they put in enough infrastructure to handle 10 car chargers. Each one has 2 ports on it, so a total of 20 cars can charge. But you have to buy at least one
So
to get
you
the
buy
big
one,
one.
which would be subsidized at least the installation of it.
Yep.
And then we pay for the other stuff.
Yeah, so
And
the
the
big
one
one
has
is pays for the one.
2 ports to it?
Yeah, it'll have 2 ports.
And then the charger itself has ongoing maintenance that, it's, because we.
Do we maintain it, or, yeah, that's.
Well, I think that's part of the, you basically, as far as I can tell, I've just done a little research in this, so as far as I can tell, you basically hire a company that manages the credit cards and the car charger. And so they would probably do whatever needs to be done.
Okay.
But we would own the car charger, so I mean, if it failed completely, we'd probably have to decide if we wanted to replace it or something. They cost, plus or minus $5,000.
Any electric vehicle, teachers drive electric vehicles, do you know? Any of them drive electric?
Linda Venerian.
But we have many more
Hybrids.
staff other than
Oh.
teachers.
I should say staff, right, staff.
We have some hybrids. Is it full of
I think it's full.
So,
Right, we're doing it. We have to do that.
yeah, I was thinking about this in terms of, the
big bonus.
parking lot lasted 30 years.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
nice to
No,
not
we
have
should do.
parking
I
lots.
think, I mean, I'm less interested in the car charger than I am in getting the 10 lines, the, whatever you
Yeah,
call it,
already.
charger ready or whatever you called it, because I
Yeah.
think that was a smart idea that you had. Because, as you say, 20 years from now, everybody will. Right?
Yeah, I expect everybody will,
Well, and they're all over Concord, so.
yeah.
it's-
And so we
it's
do have,
becoming
as part of the
typical.
stuff that we have, we do have approval from the historic district, not that you need it, but they're okay with it.
I would. What do you need from us?
So the process would be for me to start this, I need to basically get some statement from you guys that you want me to go do this, right? As part of the Energy Task Force. And then I need to find out from you, do you have any constraints on like exactly what the thing looks like? Or can I just make the decision, or can I just have, the Energy Task Force make the decision? Because there's 7 different brands that we could pick from. And
Do we need that input? Do we really need the input on how it looks like?
I think we should say something.
Something. We should
we
find
want to be in
somebody
the
who drives
conversation,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, so, one constraint that I have on this is our Green Communities grant runs out at the end of December, and we have to have paid for the thing by then. Eversource won't come in and actually do the work until we have paid for it, okay?
So it's paid and reimbursed by Green?
It's paid and reimbursed by the Green Communities. So it all needs to be done.
So it's $5,000 out of pocket, then you get it paid back.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Green Communities pays for it directly or how exactly that works, but, so,
And expires December, you said we have to make, it has to be done by December.
it has to be paid for by December.
Paid.
Oh, okay.
So we put it
Not
in the shed
installed.
So which we
Not
pay,
necessarily.
which we paying for?
So how's it managed? I mean, could a townsperson from somewhere
I
park their
guess.
car in our
As long
lot?
as they use a credit card.
Oh,
So we
question.
lose parking spaces for parents and staff if
Well, we
citizens.
could have put a sign to say no non-school use during these hours, right? I mean, we can.
There's always parking during the day, no?
No, it gets
No,
tight.
there's not
It
always
gets tight.
parking. I think to Susan's
Good
point,
question.
we should have a sign that restricts its use to the CPS staff actually during school hours. It shouldn't
Yeah.
even be parents, I think.
Right, I agree.
Staff should use it, and then after hours, if it's a credit card, I guess I wouldn't care if people can charge up. I mean, I don't know why they would, but.
So do we vote on this?
Yeah, well, what's the time? I'm not clear on timing. Like, it's, like, when, is it a now thing, or you want to do a little more research and come with the 5 designs and all this stuff? 'Cause-
So I can do either one if you just, give me blanket approval to go make it happen, we can do that. Or I can go do a little bit more research and come back to you with like 1 or 2
I
alternatives.
think that's a good idea, Jonathan, because we know nothing at this point. so
We're a
it'd be good to
deliberative
see.
body, we just, decide things.
No, I know, the first time you hear it.
First time I hear it, right?
Yeah.
So,
So
it
that's
sounds like a
fine.
good, to me, I mean, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't have any objection to it.
So there would be no cost to us, we would just be putting money up and getting that money reimbursed from Eversource?
Yeah, except for the ongoing cost.
Once it's installed, but
Once it's
that's
installed.
happening like around the time the paving's done, right? This is like a next spring thing.
It depends on, when everything can work out. It would be really tight to try to get it done before the ground freezes, I
Right.
think.
Right, so it wouldn't be anyway,
So.
But as long as it's paid for, then
We need to
they
pay
can work
for
with
it.
us on the schedule.
Right.
Right.
So,
but when they put conduit in, I mean, your whole inbound presumption was trench out before you pave over.
right.
So
we
they
wanna
would
do
be
it.
doing that.
Yeah, that's
So
what we
that,
want.
I mean, to me, the overall common sense piece is get those conduits in before they pave so that they don't dig trenches in the pavement. And then you got them, right? You got 10 of them, one of them's working. Why not? I mean, we're a green community, right? We should-
Yeah.
Where else is Dennett gonna charge up his Tesla anyway?
So I do have the question, do you guys want to make any statements about where they should and should not be? Because Eversource is going to want to do the minimum distance trenching necessary to get to them. So, I was originally thinking, it'd be nice on one of those sections that has just a single line of parking up against an island. And so you've got the carpool area, which has 6 spots. You've got the area kind of by the gym, which has something like
This one right
18
here.
spots.
This close in, right here, right?
The one where the 6 spots is currently, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
It's currently
the,
reserved
This one,
for
that's,
That's
energy,
carpool.
like hybrid.
Oh, yeah, so
stuff
that's where you put
anyways,
the charge, you make it reserved for electric, or,
right?
is it already reserved for hybrids?
I feel like there's a spot in that line of 6 that says reserved for, priority for.
Oh, is there already?
For energy efficient vehicles
Yeah.
or something
Okay,
like
so
that.
that'd be a natural spot.
Yeah.
So that's
You
a
can
good
always-
spot.
I think so.
This I think is a good spot, by the gym, and this
Oh,
would
yeah,
be a
that's-
decent spot.
Yeah.
The difficulty with this one is since the parking's moving, you have to have them put it in saying the parking lot will be here, so put it back
Oh,
where
this
the
is
gym
in
is.
and it's so far from,
Is this now,
Well, actually,
is this
the
the one
source is
that's
up the
now parallel parking that's gonna be hidden?
No, that one's gonna stay the same, it's perpendicular.
Oh, it is perpendicular parking. Where's the gym one where they park?
So where's the trench run to?
oh yeah, that's here.
Oh, that's this.
No, that's
No,
not it,
no.
David.
Oh, it's over here, that's here.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That's the illegal.
Where's the
parking.
trench run to?
What,
So
the hill?
Parking spots?
Yeah, the hill, we're losing the hill.
To wherever
Because it's coming
wherever
a little bit
Eversource
closer.
interconnects.
Yeah.
So it's probably just some.
You know, right, here's, you're gonna have 10, you mean 20 spaces, right?
It's 20 spaces.
I would
That's a
do,
great
I'd do this
space.
one. One,
That's
two,
great,
three.
John.
Yeah, so that one would be wonderful. The only difficulty with that is the electric line is out here at the street, so they'd have to trench all
So
the way
this
up.
is actually,
Okay, they're paying for
I
it.
know. If we can get them to pay for it, that'd be great, huh?
So that one and this one, then you got 20 and you're done.
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
all right.
I mean, I think you
so
got
I
enough
think these are the two
creative.
areas that we're most eager for.
Yep. How about this one?
Well, it's what you should say, yeah.
And it's just logistically more difficult for me, so.
Which is the place where the parking doesn't exist presently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one that gonna move.
Yeah, where the parking's
Yeah.
gonna be moving in a little bit.
Whereas-
More challenging, but it
It's
would
still
work
fine.
well.
It's just
You know where it's
logistically.
gonna be.
Yeah, I'd have to get
A
the
little
exact
more
dimensions from
logistics.
Amoresco to say, please put it here,
Yeah.
Right.
so.
So it sounds like you've got a good idea. My advice is go get the last bits of research.
Can
And,
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Who fronts the 5,000?
Oh, the energy task
Susan
force.
Prey.
No, but
The energy test, so when the 5,000 comes back by way of grant, it goes
To them.
back.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how the payment works, but the Energy Task Force manages the green community stuff. So that would all go through the Energy Task Force, and the building commissioner is involved. I don't know exactly who writes the check, who receives the money, but my guess is ultimately the city office.
Can you
So-
iron that out as part of your research?
Yeah. So the only initial cost to the district, we wouldn't have to pay that 5,000 upfront, that would be the energy task force. Our only initial cost would be, once it's installed, whatever it costs to manage the station.
Right, and so there's also an open question as to, can any part of the green communities grant be used to fund some of that?
That would be good to know too.
So,
But in any case, I mean, from a budget planning standpoint, the revolving piece, that's a timing issue, but
Won't impact the city's budget.
well, and the piece that will, maybe the operating costs at the earliest would be it would be in the next fiscal year anyway,
Yeah.
so
Right.
I don't think it's an issue.
and we also have to decide, basically, because it's gonna have some positive or negative effect on some budget, so where would that go?
Right.
Right?
Well, that's what I was saying, that the piece that you outlined would potentially be an operating cost to the school. At the earliest would be the 2021 budget, which, 2021, 21, 22?
We're doing the 2021.
The one we're doing now is where we would put a little cost.
So, yeah, and so it could be the school, I don't know, it might even be the energy task force, depending on how you
Well,
want
if
to
it's
do it.
amortized into that rate, hopefully it should be a little money generator.
Well, yeah, depends on how you want to do that.
So John, any information you have on, you mentioned there are companies that manage those for you?
Yeah,
Any information on what that cost might be? Because we will only have two, right? So
yes,
it might not
well,
be
they
cost
charge
effective.
per port, and believe it or not, they charge, as far as I can tell, the going rate is about $360 a year. So it's basically $1 a day to manage the credit card system, which is, in my opinion, ridiculously expensive, because even if someone sat there and charged all day, you would make like $10. So they're taking a big chunk of the potential value.
All right, great. So is next month, this meeting too early for you to bring?
No, let's see if I can pull that off.
Okay, just keep in touch.
Yeah,
You know where I am.
yeah, I'll find you. So it sounds to me like you guys are saying, go forward.
Please, yeah, we'd love the research.
Is there only one entity, like one company that offers this management system?
No, there's not, there's multiple.
Okay.
So we can get quotes, find out if it does work.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you
Thank
so
you, John.
much.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
All right,
thank you.
okay, so we're gonna move on to district strategic objectives.
Right, so in the packet, we have our district objectives, which are 2017 through 2020. So they've been updated for 2019 for this year. And you'll see our objective one remains the same, all of our objectives remain the same, but objective one is to provide a rich, rigorous, and relevant curriculum. And underneath that objective, we have a number of goals here that we've identified, and many of these, again, are continuation. So increase student awareness of and responsiveness to the challenges and benefits of digital citizenship. We've made strides in that regard, and we will continue to work on integrating that into our K through 8 curriculum. So that's still here. Solidify the presence of computer science, coding, and programming within our curriculum. we've made progress on that, but we are looking for additional areas in which we can integrate that into our program. Use technology to broaden student awareness of their world from a global perspective. We've had a number of teachers, K through 8, who've taken this on, and we've made advances, but still, every class doesn't have that opportunity, and we're looking to, again, encourage that so that we can broaden our students' experiences. We also have, number 4, review our science curriculum to ensure rigor, relevance, and student engagement. Each year or two, we focus on a curriculum, and we're looking at the science curriculum. We've adopted a new curriculum in the past 2 years, and we just want to make sure that that is meeting our expectations and meeting our needs. And then the 5th one, which is the new one, it's a large one, it connects with our school committee goals and the superintendent goals, is really engage the school and the broader Carlisle community in updating our shared vision for our students and our school. So that part of it stems from conversations we had last year as we went through the process of exploring, restructuring, and looking at the middle school dynamic and looking at what's taking place in our elementary school, and really saying, like, we need to bring all the voices in the community together and develop a clear vision for education in our town, while at the same time looking at our students. And in the changing world we live in, the demands and their needs are changing. They're not the same they were when we were in school. So we want to make sure that we identify what we as a community feel are those skills and characteristics and qualities, and make sure that we design our educational experiences to develop those skills in our students. But I think that begs a larger conversation among the community. So that's one of our larger new goals under our rich, rigorous, and relevant curriculum objective.
Can you speak to, Jim, when you're going to start that vision committee?
So I would look to be putting the notice out to faculty, staff, and community in the next 2 weeks, and looking to do that at the beginning of October, mid-October. So the first step we'd be looking at is really convening interested parties who want to serve on such a visioning committee.
Yeah.
And then getting a general sense of what we feel is the best approach. Is this something we can do internally? I've had conversations with members of our community who were interested from previous hearing about the visioning committee, who have some skill in that regard and really coordinating such an activity. So we may be able to do that internally. I've also explored options of working with a consultant who might be able to come in and help guide us through that process. But I think that's a decision for that first initial committee to really dig into and say, is this something we can do as a homegrown activity? And I would like to do that by mid-October, really.
Is it your, are they going to have a charge? Like, this is what we want you to get to? Like, not what it looks like, but is there some structure, or just like go out there and figure out what school looks like in 10 years?
No, I think the goal would be to educate people and provide some information, visuals, videos, share other schools that have made changes and have more innovative.
But they're not guided to a particular set of changes?
No.
Okay.
But just have that so one particular set of changes we will look at is what are those skills that we really want to identify to develop in our students. So that's an outcome that I'm looking to walk away with. But then we also want to look at what is our larger vision. And by exploring what some schools in other communities and across the Commonwealth and across the globe are doing, that will hopefully prompt some ideas and some conversation with us. And then we can make some determinations about what we feel would be best for Carlisle. So I want to come up with a profile of the graduate is the language we use to describe those skills. But I also want to come up with a plan for what we think our students are going to need and the structures they're going to need to support.
Okay. So if we wind back the clock, the kernel of this, the origin of this, was our school committee goal a year ago, might have been more than a year ago, I can't remember now, that basically was demographic driven, that said school population in the middle schools projected to shrink. And what are you going to do about it? So there was a year-long process where you and Matt undertook to consider that. And at the same time, Matt was working on rescheduling the middle school, so that was happening. And there was some other stuff I'm not going to go into. But at the end of the day, it became a very emotional mixture where the term middle school restructuring got, kind of a black mark. And so we decided to broaden it, which I think is fine, to a vision. But I want to remind all of us that we're still under the constraints we're always under. And we solved the more immediate problem with the 5th grade by dropping a section and making a triad out of a dyad. That problem moves to 6th grade and the structure that is in 6th grade, and that's only 1 year, less than 1 year from today. So I would personally be against a pure, unconstrained visioning process without some underpinning that says, really where we want to get to in the middle school is redesigning how we do that. Now, folding in what the goals are and what other schools do and, what skills our kids want is all great and should be part of the process. But I am personally, not nervous might not be the right word, but I think it would be a lost opportunity if we're not giving clarity to that group that says where you need to get to is how do you manage, for example, in the middle school, how do you manage a population that might be 3 sections of a grade 1 year, it might be 5 another year. We're a little town, and so one section, one little demographic flip means a lot to the way we structure this school. And we've been sort of lucky if you look at the Valentine information for a few years where it's been really stable at one level. But guess what? It's now stable at a lower level. And it may not stay stable because at that low level, some people move in. Eventually, the seniors who we love to keep in the community are, I don't want to be too blunt, but they're going to die or they're going to finally move somewhere else. But they're here for a long time. But eventually, there'll be a tick up, but we got to manage the down and the up. And so without that overall thing that got us there, even with all the politics and the emotion, that thing still sits there. And now it's 1 year closer to that point. So that's my input.
Thank you for saying what needs to be said, yeah.
So I would like to see, personally.
So I will make sure that is part of that is one of the challenges that we need to confront as a visioning committee. And
thank you.
Scott, guys, on work.
You have anything you'd like to add?
Nope. All right. So then objective number 2, build a community of respect and inclusion in a safe and healthy learning environment. Number 1, maintain a positive and supportive school climate for all students and enhance students' self-advocacy skills through the continued implementation of OVEUS. And that, we've made great strides, K through 8 last year with that, and we're going to continue that. Support school community that demonstrates cultural proficiency and commitment to meeting the diverse needs of students and families. Again, this is one that's been here for the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to work on that. Support and celebrate opportunities for teacher leadership and career growth. Again, we've made strides here, and engaging teachers in the process of mentoring new educators, which have really paid dividends for us as we've brought a number of new educators in the first step, so that's been beneficial, and we want to continue that, and having them take on new leadership roles within our school. And strengthen school and community collaboration, supporting a healthy and safe school environment. So again, all of these are been carried over from last year, and we're looking to continue to further develop those. And then ensure equity and excellence in learning. So number 1 here is increase the use and effectiveness of our tiered system of support. So this is a primary focus of our elementary and middle school this year. So at the elementary school, we're focusing on the Universal Design for Learning, which is really focused on how we enhance our classroom instruction, Tier 1, so that it really meets the needs of all of our students in an individual way. Then at the middle school, that new schedule you mentioned, Dave, we have created time for Tier 2 support, so the middle school is really focused on their Tier 2 supports and how to identify students that need Tier 2 supports and bring those supports to bear to help those students perform in a way that we need them to meet the expectations that's set out for and stay current with their class peers. So this is a major focus for us. And then we have Tier 3, which we have Lori Bruce, who's joined us this year. She's been with us for probably almost 12 weeks now. So, and she's really rolled up her sleeves. She's learned a great deal about our special education programs and how we're operating. And she's identified areas which we can make some changes that would help us move in the right direction. So we're looking forward to our West Ed report, as we mentioned before, coming back in, Lori's work, and providing all that information to you as a committee in October as to some of the areas we hope to be working forward in there. So, but that multi-tiered support system is really the focus of the work at both elementary, middle, and special education for the upcoming year. Then number 2, ensure that all students have the opportunity to develop their social emotional intelligence as a consistent part of their educational experience. Again, we do an outstanding job with this, and we want to continue to make sure these opportunities are available to students. Continue to support professional development opportunities for teachers in order to improve the school experience for our English language learners. The population of students coming to the Carlisle Public Schools continues to grow in its diversity, and we want to make sure that we are meeting each student. Each student has that same amazing experience, regardless of their background or their first language or wherever they are. If they're here in Carlisle, we want to make sure their experience is outstanding. Number 3, continue to support, I already read that. And number 4, maintain and further enhance the ongoing professional development opportunities designed to support paraprofessionals' effectiveness and connectedness. Again, that was a goal for last year. We had a lot of programming to educate our paraprofessionals, but our paraprofessionals are often the front line in working with our students, and we want to make sure that they have the education and background so they can support our students as they try to connect and meet the expectations in our curriculum. So those are our 3 district objectives, and those are the underlying goals that we have for each one, and that is our focus for the upcoming year.
So I'm not in item 1 of objective 3. I'm not seeing tier 3/SPED actually identified. Am I missing
Item
something?
1, 3.
Objective 3, equity and excellence in learning, tier 1, tier 2, blah, blah, blah. But then it goes on to social emotional. There's no 3, there's no tier 3 SPED as an objective. So you spoke to it. That
Yes.
sounded great what you said, but I don't see
All right.
it's identified here as a district objective.
I will work with the team tomorrow. We have a meeting, and we'll see if we can identify some goals that we can incorporate that for tier 3 also.
I have a question about the way in which the vision of the Carlisle Middle School flows into the vision for the high school. Do you work with the superintendent of the high school to sort of coordinate and dovetail, seeing as the school feeds into that?
I'm gonna say like we haven't had any overt conversations of our vision and their vision dovetailing together. So when, it was probably 2 years ago, they had some meetings to look at what they wanted to identify as their strategic objectives. So I was involved, I was engaged in that conversation dialogue.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of what their focuses are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they do, from that, they dovetail really well together. If you look at most schools at this moment in time, you'll find that they all share some of the same goals.
Mm-hmm.
Tiered support for students, individualized education, making sure that the instruction in those classrooms are rich, relevant, and rigorous as we described. And you'll also hear a conversation around individualizing those educational experiences, and that's whether it's project-based, authentic experiences, and that's something that they're working towards at CCHS, and that's something that we're working towards here at the middle school. And now that we start talking about it, I guess maybe I should have said yes to that collaboration. Because also, so this year we met with, this week we met with Lori and Michael Goodwin, who runs the Rivers and Revolutions program at the high school. So they're interested in kind of reaching out to 5th graders in Concord and in Carlisle to develop those connections and give those 5th graders and our 5th grade teachers and some experiences with regard to that type of educational experience. I'm not sure if everybody's
That's the
familiar
experimental,
with
yes.
the Rivers and
the
Revolutions
experimental.
program. So I will say, yeah,
Learning.
we do have those conversations.
Okay.
And it is, you will see if you look, we are aligned, like our goals and theirs are aligned. But it wasn't as overt as us sitting down and really discussing how we completely aligned.
Okay, and I wanted to add that CCHS just hired a special education director as well. So they're going through a lot of changes in their system right now. They went through the West End evaluation And they brought their proposals, that was right before summer, they brought their proposals and of what they're going to be doing across the region, their schools and also at the high school. So there was a conversation how we can bring some of those ideas and have that conversation come into to our middle school teachers, so they understand what the CCHS teachers are expecting to receive on the other side. We talked about what kind of verbiage is used, or coding when they're teaching literacy classes or writing classes that may be helpful for some of our students when they are transitioning to CCHS. So there is a conversation about this coming from.
No, I agree.
from them.
I'd say Eva and I are both on the region, and one of the things, I've learned from the short time I've been on there is, and Christine would probably support this, there's a lot there. And because Concord's a larger system, they just have more stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they do a lot now. Now that Lori's sort of settled in, she's in her third year, the superintendent. She's working a lot on integration of the K through 12. Sometimes it's annoying as a Carlilian because it's all about Concord K through 12, and we're like, okay, we're here. But there's a lot there, and I think the Rivers and Revolutions is a great example, coming in and sharing. Christine Herbert, who's the literacy, I'm not sure what her title is, but she's working with Marcella Pixley, and I think she might be working with you too, Jim, right?
Yeah, we've talked.
Yeah, I mean, they have a
She's
whole
an assistant superintendent.
literacy thing going on in the middle school and the grade school, and I guess, I would echo what Eva said, and we should take it, we should leverage the fact that they're bigger and they're well-resourced and they've done a lot of research and stuff, and we should just take as much as they'll give us. I mean, I really feel, now that I've gotten past my sort of, Carlisle, what's the word? Kind of. Yeah, resentment. It's not resentment. It's not resentment. It's this, we're Carlisle,
Hometown pride.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll call it hometown pride, because we're just a little different, but I've gotten over, I have to say, I'm saying in front of whoever, the 3 people that might watch us on TV,
Hi, Margot.
I've gotten over that bias, and I'm now, there's a lot there that we should be tapping into, and so I totally support that, and the more we can do, the more cross-fertilization. I know, I'll say one more thing and I'll shut up, but Bill Fink did a lot when he was here, because he had 2 kids that were kind of in the process of moving to the high school, about making the 8 to 9 transition smoother. And several of us have 9th graders who've just transitioned, and I thought it was pretty good. But I think what you're saying is, okay, that's great, but really, why don't we just kind of, like the on-ramp, right? Let's not just do this, right? Let's make sure that we kind of tee right in. And so I would completely support that as an objective possible.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, also, I was on that strategic planning thing with Jim, and it was obvious also that Carlisle, being small, has the more flexibility to implement things and be kind of a petri dish.
We
that's
can help
true,
them.
too.
That's a great point.
Some stuff. We introduced some stuff
Right.
a few years before Concord Elementary and Middle School do, because
We can prototype it.
we can prototype it. So it seems to be there's a healthy
Yeah, I think it's great.
best practices kind of cherry picking.
That's a really good. Okay. Anything else about the district goals? Thank you very much, Jim.
Sir?
Okay. So we're going to move on to the school committee goals. If you go to your minutes from, now I can't remember the meeting, but
July 29th.
July 29th, David had done a nice grid for us to see what we thought the goals should be. And so Shannon, you weren't able to be with us because you were traveling all over the world. But I didn't know if you wanted, don't mean to put you on the spot, but were there any goals that you think you would like to add to, or what the school committee should be looking to achieve this year?
So I saw the ones that you guys had articulated, and I think for me, I can't find my page here. My interest really is in what we were just talking about, this larger vision of what schools should be. A lot of that was informed by the work that was done in the School Advisory Council. We read that book, What Schools Could Be, that was very inspiring. And so helping to articulate that and figure out how to sharpen up that vision would be, I think, a great place to put some energy.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I think I heard a volunteer for that committee. So what do you want to do?
So should we go over our goals?
Sure, yeah.
So, district vision, school building. So I guess we can look at the grid, David?
Sure.
Would you mind leading this?
Sure. So we, just for the few who may not know, or even fewer who would care, our summer meeting is typically a little more reflective, and it's still an open meeting, and Cynthia was there reporting on it, but we don't really tackle so much like tactical stuff like we do in a lot of these meetings. We just think about stuff. And Jim did a nice job in I'd say, facilitating with some leading questions and so forth. And the goal of the meeting is to come up with kind of the draft goals for the upcoming school year for the committee. And I have to say, I think this was a pretty good one. Like, I felt we got to a good place, and we got there faster, because in some years we dawdle around and it's months and months before we put the goals to paper. So, so this is a fairly brief table of a much bigger conversation, but I think you can see, if you look at the grid, some commonality of themes, and just maybe saying it a little different way. So I would say each person could maybe summarize from this list what they mean by the goal. Or what, let me say one more thing, sorry. So now, the little harder part starts now, is really I don't think we need to be as granular as the district goals, but we should have some metric that we want to do like this year. Like, where do we want to go with whatever you've said?
Okay, so these would be the things that we working
These are the areas,
from.
and we will down select, I guess, but we
Okay.
should decide what are the things we should focus on.
All right, so Dave, why don't we start with your goals?
Okay. So I have two. I always feel that budget should be a goal, because in my mind, the school committee has really two basic jobs. One is to recruit, hire, monitor, aid, whatever, the superintendent, occasionally change superintendents if that's not working. That's a periodic goal, that part. The mentoring piece is somewhat ongoing, but not like an everyday thing. But the budget is really ours, okay? The budget is ours to work on, and to work with Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen and socialize in town and promote and make sure that it's working. In a town like this, to me, and as everybody knows, I was on Finance Committee for a long time, you can't lose sight of that, because the people you see every day are the ones who are paying those bills, and we got to be stewards of that money. So that's always, like, to me, goal number one, and so that's why it says budget. And then the second one for me personally is special education. And I'll just say, with two kids on IEPs, I don't feel they were particularly well served by their time in Carlisle Public Schools. And okay, so they've moved on, but I think there's a system needs fixing. We have a brand new director, we have a West Ed report, and let's get at it, because I think it needs help. And so those are my two goals, and that's what I'll say.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you want to go?
Sure. Budget is a big one, because, it's fundamental to the operation of the school. But I think the more of what's the objective of an education in Carlisle, I think was more, if we're looking at the whole vision planning, other than preparing a kid for 9th grade, what is it what's the actual result that we want from an education here? And so, of course, then that goes sort of hand in hand with, what are the innovations? What you need to change the way that you look at, and to what capacity can you change the way you look at education and what it means and what it entails.
Okay, great. Thank you. Eva?
So my goals for the school committee are really also circled around special education. We have a new director, director number 3, and for school parents and children, it is important that our director is successful. So really, building those supports around the new director and having that continuity is very important. She's coming in with a fresh look, so really taking a look at looking at the special education, the needs, the future needs, where the trends are in students coming into district or currently in lower grades, moving up to higher grades, how to manage their needs and make sure that their needs are met well during the services. And another thing that I wanted to focus is also a communication, because I feel when you have a lot of good transparent communication with the parents and the community, it creates more of a trust situation. So I know that I was looking at the region, what they were doing, and their superintendent, she ran a forum for the parents of children on special education plans, just to get an idea of what their vision is for the future of the special education. How is it working currently at the system? What can be changed? So I think those opportunities can create that openness and better venues of communication as the new director is coming in, especially that we're going to be reviewing and looking at the West End review evaluation. Thank you.
Thanks, Eva. I'll just say, it says innovation undermined. I have no idea what I meant.
I have a card here, but I was trying to piece
you got more out of
together.
it than I did, David. So, but I did want to, as Melinda had said before, when she was the chair, to work on the policies and procedures to make that a better process so that it didn't take up so much of the time that we're together here. So actually, we will have our first meeting this week. As many of you as can come, please do, because it will, again, make this meeting quicker and give us more time to focus. So the policies and procedures, I'm excited about that. But I guess I would also say that in the last, 2 months, I've really felt like SPED has come up a lot. I think we are sitting in a golden opportunity with the West End report coming through in October, with Lori coming on board, for us to really look at this, and with the changes that the innovations that we're going to bring into middle school. So I would love to third this notion that we really should focus on SPED this year. And I think the only other thing I'd like to add is communication/transparency. I want to give as much openness to this committee as we possibly can, so that people, even to a greater extent, understand what our challenges are, as well as what our how we operate. And I'm not really sure how that's going to happen, but I think that we need to look at transparency with everything that we do to make sure. I'm thinking of Scott helping us with the budget. The more we can tell the finance committee about who we are day to day instead of just once a year, then the better off you're going to be able to understand why we're asking for what we're asking. So I'd go with those things. Jim?
I think the goals I discussed remain the same. So initially it was what skills do students have, so that was our profile of the graduate, which we've incorporated. I'm not sure what the engaged school and broader community and communication, but I'm going to say that that's engagement in the communication regarding a vision, right? The vision moving forward. Yeah. And then our focus right there is the multi-tiered approach to student support, which covers tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, instruction and supports.
I think the communication that you referred to in the meeting is kind of a continuation of what you do already, which is just make sure that you're addressing constituent groups who do not necessarily include parents of current students.
And
Which I
making
think
sure
you do.
parents, and I think that was a goal from last year, was making sure parents had voice in decisions that were being made and they understood the differences.
So where do we proceed from here?
Well-
You said you want to give these sort of like qualifiers, right?
Well, I would say,
Or markers.
well, I was trying to line them up sort of commonality, but didn't work exactly. But I think, SPED is clearly coming out as,
Yep.
there's certainly a clear majority on the SPED side. I think budget, we've made our point, so budget's there. And then I would say, if you want to put innovation, vision together in some package, that's a thing, right? Because we've got a committee and.
Yeah, that's true. And it's
Is
really
the
important.
committee going to report to us or report back to us, or is it a school-driven?
Visioning.
Visioning committee.
I think that the committee would report to you,
Okay.
would report to you
Right.
in a way that they would share the
Yeah, we're not-
information with
Yeah,
you,
right. So I think that would dovetail naturally a vision goal with a timeline that you're going to figure out with that committee will also be I think that would make a natural goal. I don't know what it is right this moment,
Right.
but, there's an outcome that.
I think it'll impact, maybe it will impact some of the budget decisions. That's going to be.
Yeah, but not, yes, no, it will, that's a good point. So I mean, that presents a timing issue.
Yeah.
I know, for
Well-
example, we had the conversation about the West Ed report and Lori's kind of report to us, and the point I made to Jim was sooner rather than later for a number of reasons, but one of them is, if there's budgetary impact, we're in budget season. I don't see, that one I see because I kind of understand the report's there, Lori's been here since July, et cetera, but I'm not quite understanding how that timetable fits, because it seems to me that the committee, if they start in October, I mean, maybe, I guess by.
And it's the part of what I feel is like, the point is, we need to look at the challenge of the fluctuating, you made that challenge of the fluctuating numbers in the middle school, right? That's something we have to work into that.
That as a piece
Have the
needs to be in
committee-
place for next
For
year.
Well, that's the part with
Yeah.
the committee has to pay attention to that.
Right.
But I want to make sure that we don't make that visioning about
About that.
too linked about budget.
No, we made that
We
mistake
don't
last
want
time.
that.
We don't want to repeat that mistake.
Yeah.
So I think there's a separate, I think it's a very good question, and I would say that the committee should be bigger than that. I agree with you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a tail wag the dog. There is a budgeting exercise that you and Susan are going to engage in, that you're going to have to figure out what next year looks like. And there'll be
Correct.
some decisions about budgets that are made that will probably be in advance of what is recommended, and you just have to kind of, take a stab at it, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess what we don't want to do is repeat what last
Right,
year, is have budget drive. If we want to talk about the vision, if we want to talk about innovation, and we know there's a challenge that we have to address, let's have that conversation in an open setting and in a progressive way without feeling we're beholden to something else. Because that will get in the way of the whole conversation. And knowing that we're looking down the road, there's next year, but there's 3 years after that, and there's 5, we want to set the vision for the long term.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think the 3 goals that we just talked about, special education, the budget, and the innovation and the vision are great goals for us to craft language around.
Yeah. But now you could throw in that communication, because it comes up a lot, if you want.
Yeah, I think we should.
And just pick something. I mean, last year, or the year before, I don't remember, but
Year before.
you took the lead on
Facebook and.
the TV and the Facebook and a bunch of things. So.
But we can build on that.
You can build on that. I
Yeah.
think, the challenge remains, and it's not a school committee challenge, it's a Carlisle challenge. And it's probably all the small towns in Massachusetts. How do you engage, other than the 100 that are on the various committees and
Right.
show up to the meetings? How do you engage the other 1,200 families that kind of just don't even really show up to town meeting, honestly? They only show up if something's not
Right.
good,
Right.
And that's a challenge. There's not been a solution that I've seen at any point, but
But we should chip
We
away
should
at it if we
continue
can.
to, we
Yeah.
should continue to try.
All right, so that's great. You got those names? What a silly question, sorry. Okay. So thank you all very much for that.
So-
Was the goal also to give more space to the children's presentations?
Yes, that comment came up. That's not a goal, but that's a good suggestion.
I
That
was
was a
my
good
notes, it was, because at the high school, they have kids, I mean, at the region, they have students presenting every meeting. And I just think, if we're trying to get people to come here, we'll at least get the families of those kids here.
At least for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We'd love to at least,
Yeah.
have some bragging rights for the work well done by children here, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For those parents.
And I want to see how we can change that end of year thing.
So Matt had that experience last year. He's already
Yeah.
been
he's like,
thinking about how we could change that.
Good.
And then I think I have three things on our agenda for tomorrow, but one of those is to talk about presentations, what type of presentations we can bring.
So
to the
Evan, we
school.
can put that under communications.
Yeah, right,
Okay,
right.
okay.
I
But
agree.
thank you for reminding us.
Yeah, let's put that.
So just so we have 4 pieces we identified. Would you like me to try to draft language for those goals? Or do you want to draft
I
language?
think that's a school committee.
Yeah,
I think
I'll
the
take a stab
chairman,
at
I
it.
think the chairman can
I'll
do
work
it.
with
Or the chairwoman can do it.
Chairperson,
Awesome.
the chair, actually. The chair.
All right, I got
When I
that.
said chairwoman, I used to say that chairwoman, when like Melissa or Mary was chair, and they're like, "I'm sexist, don't say chairwoman, say chairwoman."
You can't win, David. You can't win. All right, I'm on the wrong page. All right, so now we are moving on to, Jim's goals.
So back to goals, and hopefully all our goals for the district align, just as we want to make sure that my goals align with your goals, align with the district objective goals, and the teachers' goals align with the district's. So there should be some redundancy here. So the district planning goal that I've drafted for this year is, again, engage the Carlisle school community and broader Carlisle community in the process of updating our shared vision for our students and our school with the creation of a visioning committee which will guide and inform the work of developing such a vision for the Carlisle Public Schools for the next 5 to 10 years. So the visioning committee is here. 2 student development goals. One is really focused on the work that we can do to identify those skills, qualities, and characteristics. We'll describe it as the profile of the graduate. And the second piece really focuses on, again, this is a repeat from last year. And last year, part of it was we brought a new member into the leadership team. This year, we bring another new member into the leadership team. So really working as a leadership team on our effectiveness and ability to provide support and guidance and feedback to our faculty and staff through the educator evaluation process, and making sure that our work is consistent, and at the same time knowing that that work is the most effective work in improving and moving the quality of instruction forward in the district. And then the 4th goal here is a district improvement goal, professional practice. Develop and maintain a shared vision focused on school improvement within our administrative team. And this just draws us back to the district objective, making sure that we continue to focus on those district objectives and that we continue to assess whether the strategies we're employing to move those objectives forward are being successful, and reassess and change strategies and use various means in our repertoire to make sure that we are making progress. I don't know if there's any other ideas you'd like to have included there.
I think we should give feedback. We should try to align, we should try to make sure that, because he sort of said, Jim sets his goals, but we really have to advise on it.
Right.
So certainly discuss. I think we should think about, now that, he's a little bit ahead of us in the process.
Yeah.
We had this kind of broad matrix of things. Now we've got a little tighter just now on 3 of them. I think we should, knowing what we just went through from the school committee side, we should reflect on these. I have to say I haven't done that. We should reflect on what he said he would like to do and see how that lines up and whether we want to realign, like SPED again. I'm going to sound like a broken record probably all year, but SPED doesn't show up on this, right? It shows up kind of secondarily because it's the last thing I'm going to do what the district says, but it doesn't say like, I'm gonna wake up thinking about sped.
Right.
And, you know, that's one of our goals, so
Yeah.
shouldn't that be one of his goals? I mean, that's the kind of thing that's a dialogue I think we have to have. Whether we have it now or, you know, in the next meeting or two, I think we gotta
Yeah.
guys keep it on the radar.
I don't think we had school committee or school had such an opportunity to work on special education, because right now we have, it's like a perfect storm. We have a new director, we have the evaluation coming out, we have restructuring that is giving more flexibility to our teachers to adjust, you know, how they deliver help to all of our students and special education. And so there is no better opportunity than now
Yeah.
for that goal.
So do we want to take time to give committee members a chance
Yeah.
to synthesize these
I think so. I mean, I
along
think.
with our goals?
Well, I think we're planning on October, really. We're gonna be
Yeah,
sharing.
there's a lot of stuff that's gonna
We're gonna
come
have a
out.
presentation on the West End.
Right.
And spoke with Lori. Lori's gonna give a little bit about her entry into the
Right.
district and
Yeah.
have an opportunity to speak to that. So that might be a time
Might
when
be
you
a
can
time.
reflect on this.
People come back and.
Share
they
some,
thought-
you can share some
Right.
thoughts offline, right, with me. We don't have to
Right.
wait for that point in
Yeah,
time.
I think that's a great point, Jim. I think especially with new committee members, and some of you know this, maybe everybody knows it, but we live inside the constraints of open meeting law. So it's not like we can all get together offline and talk about it and come back. We just can't do that. But can certainly, and I've talked to each of you, you know, go see Jim, talk to Jim, talk to Lori.
I would, last
should
year we
do
made it, or 2 years ago, no, last
Oh, last
year, you should
That was part of the
make a meeting
communication
with
too, yeah.
Jim every month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say something else. Oh, yeah, so I think what Jim just said is a good process. I think you ought to push Dorothy Presser off,
Oh, all right.
because I'm worried now October's gonna be, you've got,
Yeah, that's-
he's coming back on some stuff, and, I mean, he is Jonathan, sorry, Dick
Yeah.
Hockey's not here anymore. You've got,
This.
you got
and
this, the visioning committee's gonna be formed,
got
the
school
SPED, the
improvement.
West Ed report's
We have a
gonna-
school improvement plan that's kind of waiting in the wings. They're prepared to go in October, but they know that October looks
Right,
heavy.
so I'm thinking as you
we're going-
construct, you know, the October agenda, Dorothy, to not give her short. Dorothy Presser is the school, MASC rep, Massachusetts Association of School Committees. She's our rep, and she was coming to tell us about MASC.
But-
right?
Right, so
She
that's
can do
what
that.
I think Dorothy is probably, because we made arrangements with Dorothy, we may want, if we, we're just going.
She's pretty fun.
If
I
we
mean,
say
I talk to
here's,
her all the time, so.
okay, we could give her a time, she'd come in, speak, but then we could make sure that the agenda is fairly open after that for the three things that we really want to focus on. Or not.
If you say so, but you
No, no,
know,
I'm-
stuff comes up. All I'm saying is, I know how these things go, and they get, to use my term, Christmas tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
People dangle ornaments on the meeting, and then suddenly the meeting goes till 11. And it's also from a mental space standpoint.
Right.
If we're
Only
gonna
do so much.
focus on, like, this is a big deal, right? The West Ed
Yeah.
report, Lori's gonna speak, you know, we've said that's important, synthesize goals.
Oh, yeah, we have the
vision.
budget, yep.
You know, so there's a lot going on, and personally, you know, one of my, like, regular objectives is once a month meetings, not twice a month meetings. So
All
if
right,
we
so
wanna
yeah,
try to
we'll
do
move Dorothy.
that, I think we have to manage the agenda.
No, you're right,
The
'cause
chairman manages, the chairperson manages.
The chair.
agenda. The chair,
There you go.
it sounds so stupid though, the chair, that's like what Scott's sitting
So
on, is
here's
the
what
chair.
we meet next week, to debrief this meeting.
Yeah, I think you
We'll
should
make
look
the
at that,
agenda
we should look at that. So
Okay, all right,
And make sure.
all right, so
that's my advice.
But we should get ahead with Dorothy.
So our homework for the October meeting as committee members is to absorb these two sets of goals, the district and Jim's superintendent objectives and ours. And when you've done that, meet with Jim if you have any questions or want further clarification, and then we will definitely review this in October and try to sum it up. All right?
Very good.
All right, let's go to the enrollment update.
So the enrollment update, I think that was provided in your packet.
Yep.
Yes.
Current enrollment is at 608. We have 13 students in our preschool. We're expecting one more student, which would put us at 609. And that is, so last year during our budget development process, we created a span of what
Here we go.
the possible enrollment from 591 to 609, and with the new pre-K person, we will be right at 609. So the projection right now.
Let's do the projections.
Yeah,
We're right on
the
that.
district said 6, looks like it's 10. My graph, I can't, there's no number, but
I think we said 60. Like,
it says like
609, I thought.
609, 610.
So we were one off, and that's why I talked about this one student. was
So you
bringing-
recruited somebody, so you get.
So we're right on point.
Why don't you just take a Sharpie and just make this.
You get the joke of the night. Oh my.
He's been saving that one.
I love it.
So that's the enrollment for right now.
Okay.
Very good.
Talk about projection, right? Okay, thank you, sir. Budget process / calendar.
Performing arts studio update.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want me to get that?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So this week, Sarah, Sue, and I met with Justin Humphreys of TBA to discuss progress on the bids for the work in the music room. So the initial bids we received when we first went out early in the summer were disappointing. So
Meaning expensive?
meaning
There was no general
The
contract.
lack thereof.
there was no general contract. There was the maintenance. There were two components. One component was on target. I think the electrical at that time, and the mechanical was way off, and there was no general.
Like 40% more.
So we went back out.
No, yeah, for
It was disappointing once again. The mechanical was within the realm, but the electrical was way off, and the general contractor was way off. So we had a meeting. Sarah was going to go back and discuss that with the CEF to get a sense for where they were, because they are funding this entire process project. And then we're looking at reopening the bids hopefully in November. We're looking at tweaking a few of the variables within the bid timelines and some of the components inside the room possibly, but that was going to be part of the conversation we had with CEF.
I'm sorry it's been so difficult, Sarah. Trying to do a nice thing.
So, yeah, I mean, because right now the budget that came back is almost twice what, it is twice what TBA had originally forecast as the total.
Really?
Yeah, budget.
That's a big,
Yeah, like we're up to where it would have been if we put a second floor and an elevator and all sorts of,
without any.
without any of
Yeah.
that. With a really fairly streamlined, pared down, like, this is what we need kind of space. So I think that we will talk more with Justin and see where there are possible savings to be found and talk as a group about what we do. Yeah.
Shouldn't be so hard to help. All right, thank you very much, Sarah and Jim. Okay, now let's do the budget process / calendar. Finally, Scott, right?
So so it's on the agenda. I don't know if, Scott, if you have any insight you can share on the timeline. I mean, we've placed some components in our process because we're looking at the initial presentation to the school committee on October 16th. I have to have our administrative team, like Lori, Dennett, the principals, all the department leaders are working with their people to identify the needs for a year out. So we've started that process. We understand that we're going to be working collaboratively on the budget, but I also have to plan for a meeting. Traditionally, in Carlisle, we have a meeting where we share components of the draft budget and sections and such with faculty and staff prior to the formal presentation of the initial draft budget. So we've created a little bit of a timeline that we're working on, but it'd be great to hear.
Scott, what is that letter coming out that you mentioned in the email?
So Scott Chiola, Hart Farm Road. We just met on Monday as FinCom to finalize the budget letter, which is going out imminently. Essentially, the timeline is the same as it's been last year. The process we expect to be the same as it was last year. So in that letter, currently Carlisle Public School is scheduled for 7:45 p.m. on October 28th, which is when we're doing our 2 days of meeting with all the departments. So that will be in the letter, and the letter will also outline, as it did last year, the overall timeline where we'll meet at the end of October, get the initial budget information, and then we'll proceed to continue meeting, do our deliberations, issue the budget guideline in December, and on and on. So essentially, it's the same timeline as before, with the one caveat that I mentioned to you, Christine, is that the Board of Selectmen has set a much earlier deadline for warrant submissions. And that's a good thing because November, for initial, typically, it's been undefined and I think we're always yelling at them, we need to close the warrant book. And so this year they made a commitment to bring that up. So you should have received notification that if there are warrants that you expect to propose for town meeting, that they want at least a description and an initial cost estimate by November 15th. And that's also part of our questionnaire. When you meet with us,
That's what they should.
we'll ask, one of the things we ask is, are you planning any warrants? It's just a more formal thing. So if you're contemplating a warrant for town meeting, I would suggest you just at least frame it out and get an initial cost estimate so that it can be put into the inventory that they're considering. I don't know when the date is that they would actually close the warrant and we finalize language. That'll happen much later. We're just trying to control
See what's coming.
the scope of the warrants a little bit better than has been in the past. So there was also a request from Tim last night that I know some of us emailed about. I was not at the meeting. I don't know. I'm going to reply to that and essentially lay out the process. We always, of course, invite the Board of Selectmen to sit in on our meetings. I think that's a good opportunity to hear the budget. Typically, I know that we'll meet sometimes in advance of that just to answer questions. You could preview. Maybe that's something that a representative of the Board of Selectmen can attend.
Well, Barney Arnold was here,
Yeah.
she's our liaison.
Liaison, yeah.
So I'm just gonna, whatever that is, it needs to piggyback on our normal process, so I will endeavor to manage that. The one other thing I would say is that there was a request, and it's an ongoing thing, and it's something that I mentioned that I will look into and I'll be talking to you about, is providing a little more visibility into the budget, not control, but visibility. I think particularly one of the items that always comes up and is not well understood is the, I don't even know what the official name of it is. Well, there's out of district tuition, but yeah, there's the prepayments and that. So I think that's one of these things that always comes up in terms of people questioning how it's managed or administered. And I think if we can discuss a way to present that on a regular basis, just so people can understand the status and there's no surprises. And then a couple other thoughts in the past about getting information breakdown. So I'm going to think about that. I'm familiar with the budget. I was going to talk with Sarah and Sue about, what does this framework look like? The goal would be to maybe come up with a little dashboard report that we can create maybe in October, then maybe twice a year. It's easy to populate. We can just circulate out to the Board of Selectmen and to FinCom, just so everybody has, sees some kind of critical information.
I think it can only help everybody to really
Yeah, I think
make that clear.
And when so I have kids in school, so I understand what's going on in school, but most of the people on the committees and, actually there's a lot of people on the Board of Selectmen now that are familiar with the schools as well, which is great. But the biggest challenge is if you don't have kids in school, you don't really know what's going on here, to your point about communication. All you see is your tax bill and how much are we spending on schools. And I think when people dive into it and understand it, it makes them feel better. But the more we can do to push information out, to get the community involved, to get the community aware of what's going on, the better.
Yeah, we can do that, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Are there any questions about the process? Or
I think so.
do you have a budget number you want to share?
Not one that we want to share right now.
Nice
This is
try.
not a contract year, you have that going for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something.
All right, well, thank you very much. Okay, so MASC Fall Conference?
So, I know that, Eva, you're gonna be attending the fall conference?
Yes, I am attending the conference.
So I just wanna make sure that was out to everybody, Shannon, so there's a fall conference every year for the MASC,
What's the date?
November
November.
6th through November 9th.
And bulk of it happens actually, I think it's like Wednesday through Friday. Saturday is really like for work, so not too much going on.
So I don't know if
It's
anyone else
on
might
the
be
Cape.
interested in attending, let me know. They don't have a brochure, so to speak. They have
It's
a-
online.
They have a
It's
link
online.
online, you can go there and see what the conference offers, type of workshops are available. But if you are interested in attending, let me know, and we'll make those arrangements. I think you
There
were,
is no lodging at the
Just sleep in your
property.
car.
But there's plenty of lodging around,
There are
plenty of options. Very inexpensive at this point because no one is on the Cape.
Right.
yeah, it's in
Off-season.
yes.
It's off season.
Off-season. All right, thank you, Jim. And Special Education Council? Well, then I'll go.
Sign everyone up. So the Special Education Council, so it was last year, we ran into a case where our council, our Special Education Council, who is different than the council that I use. So we have Andy Watt through Murphy, Hesse, Toomey Lane. We had a different council for special education. We ran into a case where there was our council in special education had a conflict, which wasn't helpful to us. So it drew our attention, said like maybe we should reconsider who our council is. And now we had that conversation at the end of last year, knowing that Lori was coming up. So in that case, we came to the school committee and said, here's our situation, we have a bit of a conflict, we may need special education counsel that has not already been approved. So we talked on the committee and said, okay, we have the possibility of using someone from Murphy, Hesse, Toomey and Lane, who's a colleague of Andy's, and the committee said, yes, go ahead. So that was Muriel Sawerder. We then talked about, should we look at changing our council altogether? And it was like, that might be something we should do, but we have a new director coming on board. That's someone they're gonna work very closely with. Let's wait till she comes on board, and then she can be part of that process. Well, Lori is on board with us, and I think that it would make sense for us to look at that. So maybe working with Lori and working with Christine, we may explore some possible options of council, and then come back to the committee in October with a recommendation as to what direction we're going.
Sounds good.
So you have candidates?
Yeah, like I kind of have a top candidate already, right, because of our recent experience, but it might make sense to look around, and as we did in the past, I surveyed what council other districts were using, and that's how we found the person we worked with after we interviewed a couple of people. So I would say we take the same approach.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I'd say, just remind everyone, council is both general and sped as a school committee matter. They work for the school committee, so keep that in mind with the client.
Great. All right, any communications or correspondence? I don't know. Oh, none? Nobody wants to talk to us? Jeez. Okay. Superintendent's report.
All right, superintendent's report. All right, so this wasn't what I was planning to lead with, so what I'm going to lead with is now, this evening we got the information about the water. So I am going to put a notice out after this meeting. We'll sit down and draw something up I can send out to the parents, make them aware that we are going to be on a bottled water plan for tomorrow or indefinitely in the future. And we got to make sure, and just for us to know, we do need to make sure that we have water available to operate the building. If we, for some reason that falls through, that was a concern at 6:45, we had a couple conversations that if we don't have that water, if they drove that tanker away before we filled the tanks, we would have been in a situation where we may have to close the building.
Have they said you can't use the tank water for like the toilets? Have they said you can't do that? Or?
They didn't say we couldn't do that, but in that moment before the meeting, they didn't want us taking water out of the tank, and that was our purpose, was to fill it so that we could use it for the toilets, right? So we ran into a little conflict that we needed to resolve. So hopefully that's resolved, and hopefully everything, and that's the problem with this poet initially. I apologize. Initially, we talked about the poet system being in place, the point of entry. This has been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it was really like, oh, it's a simple thing. They put it in, they bring it up, but DEP has consistently puts new obstacles in the way as we move in that direction. So, well, hopefully, at least the water will be dealing with tomorrow. So the update is I'll send something out to parents tonight. We'll hopefully have water available. We can cook with that water with bottled water. So I spoke to Susan earlier. She can cook. She can cook with it. How we get into the whole cleaning process or any of the other things, we just have to make sure that that's. Opening of school, other than that, seemed to go very smoothly. Students and faculty returned. They were energized and looking forward to the school year. We've had some new things taking place. Nancy has been working hard this summer with Scott and Amy Smack on our new student information system, which we brought on board for this year. The student information system we're going to be opening it up to parents so they can access student attendance and see their student schedules and a variety of other things and use the registration information. Its real benefit is behind the scenes as we run reports for the states and we manage all this information. So we're really glad that's going on. We've had a few little bumps, but it's a new process and we're getting through all that. We're also going to be able to use the school messenger system as our emergency communication system. So we will be able to save some money on the backside of Blackboard.
I don't know if this is the place to bring it up, Jim, but typically what would happen is, and I think it happened for elementary school but not middle school, is that the students would get a list of their homeroom peers. In this system, they only get their homeroom. So they didn't. In
the elementary school or the middle school?
Middle school.
Yeah.
And that was pretty difficult.
Caused some consternation,
yeah.
I believe, yes.
Yeah. So it would, I don't know, I mean, I did ask if the system could spit out a list to us at home, and I was told no, not at this point. And probably never, if you even use the system a little bit, you can see that it's not made for that. But I'd love to see us go back to, or at least consider going back to producing that list for the middle school kids.
Okay, we'll consider that. Well, and one of the challenges, we could be in homeroom for those 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but then each class is
I totally understand.
a different mix of students.
Yeah, because that's what we tried to tell the children, but, you know.
We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Have that, Nancy?
I do.
All right, so we went from water to the smooth opening, and then we get to the Triple E. So we have, So Triple E has been, you're in the news, I mean, it's kind of, we smile off, but like there are serious repercussions, right? We have people getting sick, we have a young child in a neighboring community. Really, I think, actually, heard some good news today, right? Because it really didn't look good Friday. But it's a serious concern. So we had a meeting Monday morning with our athletic director, Lynn Carmel, Lauren Sawyer, our nurse, to make some decisions about how we were going to move forward, what steps we could take. We sent a notice out we sent it out to all parents, but really most of the information was focused for middle school, after school sports. But we took a couple of steps. First, the PE classes during the day, they're not going down the fields. We're just not going to do that. So all PE will be in the gym. That's fine. But with regard to after school athletics, we have cross country that runs and we have field hockey. Cross country, we took some steps to reroute any of the running away from the more densely populated mosquito areas. And then we also made a determination that all the practices should be completed by 4:30. Field hockey, cross country, everybody's home by 4:30. It's a dusk to dawn is the highest risk time. 4:30 is a little before that, but it's better to be safe. Now, with regard to competition, some of those are outside of our control, but the idea is everything will be done by 5:30. So even then, we should be safe. There was a little bit of confusion, I think, because as Concord did something similar, and they closed their They also closed the fields, which Carlisle followed, but they closed the fields, and then, so that impacted Concord Carlisle youth soccer, and then word went out that soccer was canceled, and there was concern, why did we cancel our sports? It was like, well, that's town, and that happens later, so we clarified that. We also sent out permission slips in the notification, so that if parents sign off on permission, at the athletic events, there will be deep woods off available with 25% deep for students to use themselves. So this is again middle school. So if the parent signs a permission slip, a student can take that, use it, and then you have the protection. We are not, we made it available, but we're not administering it. We're not placing on. That seems to be a point of, we don't want to cross coming from our health department. So we're hopefully that those precautions will be enough to keep our students safe. That we did receive inquiries regarding the castle and the play structure. Should we be even having students go up for recess? And at this point in time, we feel that because we're not a critical risk area, and that it's during the day, and we have monitors out there we have a yellow jacket type of problem, but we don't seem to have a mosquito problem during the day. So we're going to continue with our recess taking place there. So that's, but that is something we have to continue to monitor. That could change at any time, depending on what the designation of the area, how people assess the risk and what steps.
When does mosquito season end, when it gets cold?
The first hard frost. I feel like the first hard frost will do that, but that could be
a while.
That could be a while. So you'll see, I haven't heard about Concord Carlisle, but I know there are communities, Friday night football games.
Yeah, they're back in the football games up early.
Everything's shifted for this reason.
All the club teams, I mean, the club teams typically practice late, you know, because it's after everybody's come from school and they've all gone inside. And,
Yeah.
It's
Sometimes people feel like, there's always people who feel like we sometimes overreact to these types of things, but it's pretty serious. Like it's a very serious situation. Like if you were to have a student contract that, this age group is you know.
Yeah. Well, the rumor among the 6th grade boys is it's 100% death rate. That's not true. That's what I'm hearing from my 6th grade medical expert.
A diagnosis is not good, right? And you can
get it
feel
by
that might be, that might be.
100%.
Yeah. So they're getting the message.
So we talked about water filtration. So the next thing, West Ed report. I just want to say, so we haven't received the final draft from the West Ed, and I did mention in a previous meeting that we received a draft, and in that idea of full transparency, when we received it, we shared feedback with regard to some of the different components in there, and just to make some adjustments in tone and some of the the factual information there and the way some things are depicted. We didn't really look to make substantive changes in their findings. That was not the intent, maybe to get some more helpful information out of their findings. But what I'm planning to do is when we have the final draft, I'll share both drafts with all of you so that you can be able to see what changes we requested. And that will hopefully give you some insight into, and I can also share why we may have made certain requests that you may see, but you'll see they weren't substantive changes to findings. It was more, there's a lot of interviews, like they've conducted interviews, and you feel like sometimes things are misrepresented in the interviews from different perspectives, like when they quote my words, when they use some words too repetitively, it's like, well, maybe we want to just shade that a little bit because that's not what my intention was. But the findings, but you'll have a chance to see everything. Like you can see the whole thing and understand what we came from. We really didn't have many. There's some MCAS data that we thought they reported incorrectly, or just a couple of other pieces. But we'll share all that out with you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So we talked about the bus simulation for the solar canopy. We did. Husky Home Day update. So at the end of June, this past year, we received notification from the commissioner that the alternative structured learning program, what we call Husky Home Day that we developed for our one snow day last year, the commissioner, they're not going to continue that. They felt there was a challenge with the equity was one of the issues, equity of administration, so they're not going to support that moving forward. And I Good?
I have a question about the whole equity thing. If they're so concerned about the equity of access to technology and stuff, don't they have the same, I would think that, I mean, all the MCASs are administered on computers now, right? Kids who are exposed more frequently to computers ought to perform better on MCASs than kids who are disadvantaged and not having access to, so.
I feel my impression of what the commissioner was putting forward wasn't so much equity with regard to technology equity, but around the experiences of students with special education needs and such, and how that time and the benefit to those students, or the lack of benefit.
enough.
I have a copy of the letter I can share with you.
I got
I
it.
understood it was an access to technology.
I mean, I think you're right that they're being selective. I think they've lost sight of the objective, which was to allow the districts more scheduling flexibility in light of the prior winter, not this last one, but the one before it, where we had like a ton of snow days and we weren't ready. And I thought that was, innovative by the districts to come up with stuff, and stupid by DESI to impose, like, especially with a one-year test, only the first year, where really there was no snow. So I thought personally it was short-sighted of them and selective in their logic, but it is what it is. So I think, but it brings up a very good point for us. Well, us collectively, administration and school committee, that you gotta come up with some other alternative. Like, are we gonna give up some, teacher conference day? We have to have a contingency of days. That's the idea, right?
That's an approach, all right, so there's an approach. So going back to the conversation, right? So last year was our pilot year, but that alternative structured program
was 2 years.
Was floating out there from the DSE, and the requirements, if you recall, the first time we read those, they were very strict instruction requirements.
75% of kids have to be on at one time.
But also even the types of this, it was really prescribed. But that year we had the 9 days.
Yeah.
That's when many districts cobbled something together, implemented it,
Right.
and were absolved. And that was the year, like, we're not going to jump on that bandwagon right now, but seeing that that's the direction we're going, we'll take a summer and do some work. So I can kind of understand where the DSE is coming from, right? Everybody's cobbled together approach wasn't necessarily the same, but it was more than more than I think they had planned on seeing coming down the road. The other part is, even in the letter, it's really, part of what I took from the letter is that, like, this should be used in extreme circumstances. It shouldn't, and we just piloted it last year, like, so that's where we are. So this could be the last year.
They're allowing it this year?
Yeah, this year.
Oh, this year, okay, this year.
So we've had a conversation with our initial Husky Home Day working committee to talk about what does implementation look like for us. So it's interesting. We did a survey afterwards, after we implemented the first day.
Yeah.
And one of the questions was, should we use this as an alternative? Is this a good alternative? Parents, let's start with students. 86% of students said, yes, this is a good alternative. Teachers, 86% of teachers said, yes, this is a good alternative. Parents, 65% of parents said, yes, this is a good alternative. Now, there are a variety of reasons why they felt like it might not be it. And I have the data I can talk about. But that was that wasn't as high as the other two groups. And then so there were people that supported, then even if you read the anecdotal responses underneath, parents who may have thought it was a good idea, also many of them reflected that it's a good idea, but maybe not the first one, maybe not, like maybe after some number of days, right? It should be used as a stopgap measure, like let's implement that. So that's a conversation we had with our committee, like what might be our approach.
But I also think that's what we had decided, but you needed to test it
We were doing
still.
a pilot. We wanted to make sure we had some data at the end of that year, which is to make an assessment. So that's the conversation right now. So we're looking at right now what I would be proposing, and I'll propose it for our next meeting so that we can think about it. What I'd be looking at is we have Monday the 15th, I believe, is our scheduled last day. And I would say what I would put out there is we take 3 snow days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just traditional snow days, right? We have at least 3 traditional snow days, and then the 4th day we would look to use the Husky Home Day. the hope would be to stay within that week. Maybe
Yeah, that's
we
a
have
good idea.
2 Husky home days, and then if we have a 6th day, I mean, we had 9, we had 1, so we're
Yeah.
looking at the average probably around 5 if we average the last 2 years, but.
So right, I think it's a good point you make. So you say the 15th is a Monday, 16th is a Monday. And the flip over point is, I think people understand that week is flex week. But they start booking stuff.
The next week
after.
is we want to stay away from
that's
that.
true.
And we went deep into that week, that time, and, and it's a not great learning environment for the kids anyway. So I guess I didn't realize that you can still do it this year, so that gives us a little more time. But I guess my advice is,
Yeah.
there are gonna be winters. You're visioning. So if we're visioning out to the future and we're gonna have Tesla car chargers and all that, we're also gonna have some years where there's where there's a big storm. And the compound problem that we learned 2 years ago was, if you're a homeowner and you have a big snow day and you can't get out of your driveway or the power's out, okay, so there's a day. But if you're a school system and the buses can't travel easily and the teachers can't come from these other places, it's a whole nother layer of days that possibly, and we did, say no school because just logistically it was hard to do. And so I think we should figure out a kind of what happens if we need a week's worth of those kind of days.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And where Josh was going with it, which we, again, were too reactive to 2 years ago, but from my perspective, well, okay, because you have certain things that are gonna happen in the spring, but maybe you don't need them. Like I said, and this may be out of context, but if you say we have 2 days of parent-teacher conferences, kind of whenever it is, should we think about those as contingencies that get pulled in, and then then could you have the conferences some other way, technology way, or a different time?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one example. The example that Desi cites, which is take away my winter break, and I don't think that's so
No.
good personally, because people do definitely make travel plans for weeks like that. So
So I think you're right. I think we should come up with an approach.
or Saturday.
This is this approach. And I know that the once in 500 year storms are coming every other year
2
now,
years,
right?
yeah.
So we have that taking place, but we should develop an understanding, because the 9 days, that wasn't one off.
Right.
So we went late in June, right?
Right.
We may not have to, if we identify some days, it could be used as contingencies.
That's right.
But we may just say, it is what it is. We add the days at the end, and
You can run right till
We
the
accept
29th or the 30th if you want, but
yeah, I don't even think there's any rules that really say
Not there?
Yeah,
Oh,
are
dear.
you going to July? I don't think so.
I don't
I think there's a rule you can't.
Pitchforks would be out.
Well, the pitchforks are out
They can
anyway
show.
for 26.
I don't think there are rules.
Wow.
I think that's one of those stories that everyone's repeated over the
That's
years.
an
That,
urban
we can't,
legend.
Ooh,
and maybe there's some fiscal thing, but no, if it would be a bad day, right? If we come in July.
But I mean,
But we should develop just
Yeah.
like we put time into this,
Right.
and this we got some benefit out of this. We see that but let's put a little time into the conversation, and it's another reason that we should always look to that pre-Labor Day, the pre-Labor Day start, which often is another point of conversation.
Right, and that's a contingency, and
It helps.
Right, it does help, I agree.
The other point to add to this, summers are getting hotter.
Yeah.
So,
The rooms aren't too.
Let's go back to the
rooms
heat
get hotter.
factor.
So if we can get everybody out of the school a little earlier, it really makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, right,
Especially in the winter, they're going to be sitting home anyway.
right.
Yeah.
And the educators generally feel, and that's, that's brought up with the early start.
Right.
Even though September can be as hot as June, it's a much more positive learning environment when they're starting school when it's hot than when they're ending school when it's hot, right? So, I agree.
Right, so other update points, so as I said, we have started internally having the conversation about developing the budget. And we have a few dates for us, so October 16th is a planned presentation here at the school committee.
Is that our school committee meeting?
Yeah, October
So that's
8th,
it.
remember we switched that because of the holiday, which is on the second. October 8th, I believe, is with, I'm shooting to do the presentation with our faculty and staff, so we're hoping we can work together to develop that proposal prior to that. We talked about the Performing Arts Studio. So you may have, if you've had the opportunity to go on the school website, we were using a new template on the school website. It was vetted through, SAC had some input in that, our tech committee. It's the same company that provided the previous template. It's just the new template is much more compatible with mobile devices, so you don't find yourself totally lost everywhere. We're still, again, fine-tuning some of the pieces that are out there, and if you have any input or ideas you want to share with us, we still have to rectify our policy page, but
Let's say the phone number has an extra 0 in it, which means you can't just tap it and call in. But I can't remember what page it was on. I
all right, so let us know. Then we have, I spoke with Linda Bernard, we're still waiting for just the finalized version of the contract to come through. Right now, it's Teddy
Is that
Winkler.
in Andy's lap?
No, it's in
It's
Teddy's.
in the union.
Oh, Teddy's lap, oh.
Yeah.
So Teddy's, Linda talked
We'll
to
get right
Teddy
on that.
today. It should be, she's getting it out, then we gotta get it. She's gonna send a copy to me and to Andy. And hopefully Andy can take a look at it and then we can get everybody a copy of the contract as soon as possible. Shooting for the end of next week, but we'll see when we get it to Andy. Other upcoming events, so Friday the 13th, that's this week. We're looking for the reveal for the 7th grade play, I guess, is going to be coming up.
Ooh.
Always a big one. September 19th will be the middle school parents' night. September 26th will be the elementary parents' night. And then October 2nd is our faculty and staff safety training. Chief Fisher comes out and we go through all the safety lockdown procedures with the faculty and staff. And then we'll be looking for later this fall, for probably November, December, to do a comprehensive lockdown drill with our students in place. So that's what we have for the update.
Thank you very much. Okay, now it's done. And committee reports. Anyone have anything?
For the Concord, not too much. I mean, there was the forum that was done for the district for the special education. Just recently, that we were able to sit and listen to the feedback that was given by the parents of a big group of parents and the SEPAC during that forum. There is a big push, just like there is here on inclusion at the region. Just wanted to also note that there is the adult and the community ed is providing 5 sessions on unconscious bias interrupting the cycle. So if parents are interested, this is an opportunity to learn about what inclusion truly means, so they can attend.
Great, thanks, Emma. You have anything, Sarah? Okay, the only thing I'm going to add is if you can come to the policy subcommittee meeting, it's Wednesday at 9 a.m. What room is it in, Nancy?
Spalding Conference Room.
The Spalding Conference Room, thank you very much. At 9 o'clock in the morning. Just review the policies that are on the agenda that I sent you guys, that Nancy prepared, so that we're not starting off reading together, you know, so annotate your things, and what will happen is Nancy will annotate our changes as we go. We'll present Nancy's version at our meetings here to make it quicker. So that's all. The other thing is I've been attending the virtual meetings with Amoresco instead of Melinda, and that's fine. So it's every Wednesday morning that I go in and listen. But they presented more than I ever could.
So speaking of, that reminds me that we had an open action on the Municipal Facilities Committee representation. You were going to figure out with Jerry, what do we need to have a voting?
Is that what?
Did we cover that? Did you?
No.
Yes,
No.
that was.
No,
No, you're the community center.
Right.
Yeah.
But we met, I forget which of the 2 meetings it was this summer, but
Yeah.
one of the ones we reported on
Yeah, drop the ball.
Well, okay, so we don't know yet, so
No.
I guess we need to figure that out.
So we do need someone to represent on that committee.
We need somebody to represent.
If you can.
I think Ms. Lavery has a family conflict.
But that's the one that's every week, that,
Yeah, well, that's what we have to clarify.
and that's,
Do
we
they
have to
need us?
clarify if we can rotate.
Yeah, I mean, it seems silly that we would have to show up every week.
Yeah.
But we should
What is
be,
that? What committee
it's
is
called the
it?
Municipal
Date.
Facilities Committee.
Quality time.
And
It's at 8 o'clock.
Rob is a ex officio or whatever. Rob
Okay.
attends, but
Mhm.
it's voting, and, you know, I'll
Yeah,
just
we
make
should
the
be
point
there.
again that we're the biggest landowner, building owner in town, and so we're gonna be the biggest consumer of that stuff.
Who do I email to find out what the dealio is?
Jerry
Oh, Jerry.
Lorman.
Yeah. It's Jerry.
So figure it out with him I would have a conversation with him
All right.
about what he's got in mind.
Okay.
And see if there's a way, it's a big lift for us
Yep.
to pick one person, and you have to come every Thursday or whatever
Right.
we do, so
Okay.
maybe there's a compromise. But we
I
should,
almost don't have
we
any more.
should, we should have representation.
I almost don't have any more lists.
Tuesdays at 8 a.m.
Oh, it's Tuesdays. Oh, well, that makes sense.
I don't have any more space on my to-do list, so. Okay, thank you for that. All right, the warrants.
I actually have two more that were given to me on the 10th. Payroll warrants number 1420 for $354,998.12. And accounts payable warrant number 1620 for $89,456.65.
Thank you.
Who's signing warrants these days? How's that going? Good?
All right, so
Lots of
our,
bolts, yeah.
Yeah? it's-
our action items, we don't have a list here, but the action items for, that we have to address between meetings are the subcommittee for policy and to look at all three of the goal lists, meet with Jim if you can, and be ready to really dig into bringing those together at the October meeting, that we won't be doing anything else.
Very good.
Just kidding. Okay, citizens' comments, just one at a time.
We already have 5 members on that committee, so you may just be visiting.
Yeah.
Members and issues.
Well, that was the clarity that we need to
Yeah.
understand that.
I don't think they're looking for a permanent voting member, but maybe they are, but then they would want one person.
But I think we want someone there anyway.
I think you want someone there just,
Well, Rob will show up, but
right, he comes a
Right.
lot.
Okay.
do you report that committee?
Yes. Haven't you been reading the articles?
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll commend the chair on her first meeting, getting it done by roughly 9:30, that's really good.
Thank you, I
All
couldn't do it without you, David, I definitely couldn't do it without you.
This is good.
It wasn't looking that way.
It won't be like that in October. All
No,
right,
we gotta try.
all right, then, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, yeah.
Awesome.